This is the February 13th, 2019 morning session of the Portland City Council. For those of you who have forgotten, tomorrow is Valentine's Day. That may or may not be relevant to you, but I don't want people to forget. Carla, please call the roll.
Yes. Fritz. Fish.
Here.
Hardesty.
Here.
Udaley. Wheeler.
Here. Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the Portland City Council. The City Council represents all Portlanders and meets to do the city's business. The presiding officer preserves order and decorum during City Council meetings so everyone can feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe. To participate in council meetings, you may sign up in advance with the council clerk's office for communications to briefly speak about any subject. You may also sign up for public testimony on resolutions or the first readings of ordinances. Your testimony should address the matter being considered at the time. If it does not, you may be ruled out of order. When testifying, please state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Please disclose if you are a lobbyist. If you are representing an organization, please identify it. The presiding officer determines the length of testimony. Individuals generally have 3 minutes to testify unless otherwise stated. When you have 30 seconds left, a yellow light goes on. When your time is done, a red light goes on. If you are in the audience and would like to show your support for something that is said, please feel free to do a thumbs up. If you want to express you do not support something, please feel free to do a thumbs down. Please remain seated in council chambers unless entering or exiting. If you are filming the proceedings, please do not use bright lights or disrupt the meeting. Disruptive conduct such as shouting or interrupting testimony or council deliberations will not be allowed. If there are disruptions, a warning will be given that further disruption may result in the person being ejected for the remainder of the meeting.
So where is this?
After being ejected, a person who fails to leave the meeting is subject to arrest for trespass. Thank you for helping your fellow Portlanders feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe.
So we'll pull it and do the substitute.
Perfect. Good. Good. All right, great. First up is communications. Carla, could you please call the first individual?
Item 114, request of Robert Patterson to address council regarding homelessness.
Good morning. How are you? Excellent. Thank you.
Homeless people should be a protected class, as we do not enjoy the full rights of U.S. citizenship. One aspect in which this is alarmingly evident is the right to representation. My name is Robert Patterson. I'm the director of Everyone Counts, a Portland-based advocacy organization committed to equity in the 2020 census. One of our objectives is to count accurately every homeless person in the Portland metropolitan area on Census Day, April 1st, 2020. As we gear up towards 2020, I think it's important to look back at 2010. I want to thank Commissioner Fish for his outstanding leadership as co-chair of the local 2010 Complete Count Committee. And I also want to apologize for telling the Oregonian that you look like Donald Rumsfeld's cool little brother. But seriously, thank you for your leadership. I hope to sit down with you soon for a debriefing of sorts as we look at the successes of that committee and as we look for opportunities for improvement. Now, we know that the Census Bureau, in an effort to save money, is planning for 2020 to be the first digital census. This increased reliance on automation, especially when coupled with a reduced local presence brought about by Bureau plans to close half of its regional offices, is extremely problematic. Now, more than ever, cities need to be able to count on federal consistency. In the words of Congressman Jimmy Panetta from California, communities currently suffering economic anxiety cannot afford to lose federal resourcing due to a lack of census accuracy. The homeless do not have the same access to broadband internet as others, and this divide may leave hundreds of thousands uncounted nationally unless it's thoughtfully addressed. Our friends in LA have an interesting solution. They'll be deploying census action kiosks, which will provide broadband internet access to hard-to-count populations. Grant money exists for a similar program here, and I believe that the kiosks could then be repurposed after Census Day to be a lifeline for the homeless as an early warning system for emergency communications and as a portal to vital social services. I've recently spoken with Susan Bashore, Census Bureau Partnership Specialist for Portland, and she enthusiastically endorses the throwing of census parties as a way to bring many hard-to-count individuals together in one or multiple locations so that they may be counted. These parties, as I see it, could become social service fairs at which homeless individuals will connect with each other and important resources in a fun, safe, and pro-social manner. Finally, Everyone Counts has begun reaching out to local leaders, shelters, transitional housing providers, churches, soup kitchens, needle exchanges, street organizations, neighborhood associations, and ad hoc camping communities as we work to identify and prepare to count every homeless person in the region. We're working hard on a formal proposal, and next week I'll be traveling to Salem, where I hope to meet with Census Project Manager Aldo Solano and other representatives from the governor's office. We're lucky here in Portland to be home to Portland State University's Population Research Center, and Director Jason Jurjevich and analyst Charles Reinerson have been a great help in elucidating to me the complicated field of population studies. I believe.
Thank you. Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you. Your time was up, but I just wanted to say what a worthy goal that you are involved in. And I want you to know that I think it was maybe 2000, I guess I've been around longer than I thought, that I also worked with then Commissioner Serena Cruz to make sure that all people would be counted. And so whatever my office can do to assist you and being a part of that effort. I know that the Office of Civic Life, if you have not spoken to them, also have a plan to work statewide on gathering information for the census. So I just want to appreciate the fact that I totally share your perspective. Every person must be counted, and we have a head start to be able to do it right, so thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fritz.
Mr. Patterson, thank you. Once again, you've given us some really eloquent communication matter to be thinking about. Commissioner Daly can't be here this morning. As Commissioner Hardesty mentioned, she is leading this effort on behalf of the city. So if you could please make sure to email your comments to both Commissioner Hardesty, Commissioner Daly and the Office of Civic Life. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to throw my plaudits in here as well. This is a very well thought out letter, and the strategy is an excellent one, and I agree. The work that's being done in LA with the action kiosks, I think, is fantastic, and I like your idea of bringing people together and frankly having some fun while connecting them with services.
Very well.
It's a really good community building exercise, and I appreciate you bringing this forward today.
We have less than 14 months before Census Day.
Time is of the essence.
Let's not miss a step.
There is a sense of urgency. You're right. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next individual.
Item 115, request of Mary Bowers to address council regarding affordable housing guidelines. She is not able to make it.
All right, very good. Next individual, please.
Item 116, request of Injured and Pissed Off to address council regarding wanted honest attorney.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name's Injured and Pissed Off, and I was thinking that this is the fourth time that I've put in a request and spoke about wanted honest attorney. Apparently there aren't any in Multnomah County when it comes to suing the city or the county about dog attacks. My service animal had been attacked 7 times in less than 6 years. Apparently, Portland is pet friendly, but it isn't service animal friendly. I've talked to other people with service animals and guide dogs, and they go, well, yeah, my dog had been attacked, and one woman had told me that her previous one, she was in a wheelchair, had been attacked 5 different times, but not by the same dog, and apparently it hadn't been hurt very much. She said, but she did have training trouble with the dog afterwards. And with the 7 dog attacks that had happened to my service animal in less than 6 years, the city, it's surprising what they can get away with. They can even, with a valid court restraining order that I had against a woman, the city attorney's office, when I showed up to go to court, simply dismissed the case, saying that she really didn't mean it. And I sat flabbergasted. After 6 dog attacks, the county attorney could dismiss a valid restraining order. That's kind of like the Oregon Health heart transplant program, finding out why they don't have an Oregon heart transplant program. If you read the Multnomah County Board meeting records of September the 13th and read to my segment, I explain it very briefly. Anybody can watch and listen to it that isn't Helen Keller, and they can find out why there isn't any Oregon heart transplant program. And the cover-up that the city's done about my 7 dog attacks, dismissing the restraining order, allowing 7 dog attacks in less than 6 years, just unbelievable, and having to a blind person.
I'm going to have to ask
stupidity.
you. I'm going to have to ask you to please not disparage people with disabilities in your comments any further, please.
Disparage? That isn't disparaging, that's fact.
Your time is almost expired. You have 4 seconds.
Well, I'll give up the
Thank you.
time.
Next individual, please.
Item 117, request of Karen Moore to address council regarding accessibility for persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities in the Portland area.
Good morning.
I currently work as a direct support professional with Albertina Kerr's Portland Art and Learning Studio. We work with adults who have intellectual and developmental disabilities. And currently we've been ordered by the state and federal government to be out in our community more, which is great. I'm all for that, and I think that we should be out in the community more and participating more. Our problem is that accessibility in the community is sometimes lacking. A few weeks ago, I was out with a client who's in a motorized wheelchair who went off the sidewalk and into Burnside traffic, and I had to walk for several blocks before I could find a handicap accessible ramp to get them back up onto the sidewalk. When we did get back up onto the sidewalk, some of the pavement was so destroyed and so warped that I had to put the chair into neutral and maneuver it myself. Some of the curbs, some of the ramps on the curbs are so steep that, again, when we were coming back from our destination, my client again fell over into the street and I had to right their chair again. Even this morning, not 20 minutes ago, I was trying to assist one of my clients in the restroom and we could not bring a commode with us. That was in this building. And I was also asked, while assisting another client who happens to identify as a different gender than myself, when we were going to be finished in the bathroom. That was downstairs this morning. And unfortunately, these are issues that we continue to run into in the community, which makes accessing our community very difficult. And it also puts an extra hardship on clients who already feel stigma against them, who already feel as if they're being pointed out or even mocked sometimes when we're out and about. And I wish I could give you an easy answer and say that I have a great solution to this, but it's really just making sure that buildings are truly ADA accessible, that some of the issues that you and I don't even think about, I didn't think about it until I started working this job 5 years ago, that we are putting those at the forefront of our minds when we do construct new buildings around town, or when we see community members who maybe get around differently than us and maybe think differently than us. And I'm really hoping that maybe this council can give me some suggestions for how to do my job better and to how to serve my clients better in the community.
Well, Ms. Moore, can I just respond to one part of what you're saying? So first of all, thank you for being here today, and thank you for raising the issue of accessibility generally, and we need to make sure that all of our public places are accessible, and what you've identified in terms of curb cuts and other things, we have a lot more work to do. Yesterday, I had lunch with our current group of interns that the city is working with through a program called Project Search.
Ah, yes, I know about that.
Project Search places individuals with intellectual and physical disabilities in employment. The city has made a commitment to be a model employer and to hire more employees with intellectual disabilities. We've started that process. We've hired a number of people who came through the internship program. I'm told that in Oregon, there are two cities that are sort of in the forefront of this. It's Salem, which should be applauded, and the city of Portland is trying to become a model employer. I have learned many things like you've testified to this morning about the barriers that still exist. We want to be a model employer that reflects the great diversity of our community. If you'd like to know more about our current programs and how we might be able to partner with Albertina Kerr, please check in with my office. And I think you're absolutely right that this is an issue we need to put more attention on. And I think it starts at the city with actually hiring people and giving them the same opportunities as able-bodied people, for example, to do work and to have public service careers. So thank you for taking time to join us today.
Thank you.
And if I might just add, again, Commissioner Daly would love to address this. She's now in charge of the Bureau of Transportation. Last year, we got to a settlement with a group who sued us about the curb cuts.
I know.
So, and we're also have approved the plan to improve Burnside in particular. So we are aware of the deficits and are working as quickly as we can. Dorothy Elmore, who's in charge of security, is sitting over here. And if you could have a chat with her about your experience with the restroom, because we certainly want to be welcoming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next individual, please.
Item 118, request of Michael O'Callahan to address council regarding sweeps.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Michael O'Callahan. As you know, I've talked with you for probably about 8-10 years now about the unhoused. And Mayor Wheeler, as you know, we're in litigation, and you told the press that you would ignore the Boise decision, which was paralleled with mine, which I consider that to be kind of fascist, actually, to ignore a court. Something to look into your division of law is a thing called churn. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but look at my first case and see how much that's cost you, and look at my second case and see if we can't find some kind of common ground here. Now, the solutions are pretty clear for the unhoused. That's small villages all over the city, 25 or smaller. Now, you swept Village of Hope. Remember them out by the airport? You swept them. They've set up this really nice place, man. Nope, cops came in, swept them out. Friday, in the middle of a snowstorm, you swept the people over at the Madeleines. Okay, I took photos of it, went to your office. They said, oh, no, we're not doing sweeps. I said, here, you want to see the picture? No, we don't. How can you not see? How can you not see that people are dying on the streets 2 a week, and you keep up these sweeps that have no authority of law? My goodness. Where's your compassion? Okay, and I'm going to lay this on all of you, okay, because each one of you sit in your respective positions and not my job, not my job, not my job, okay? He is not going to change, okay? It's up to you to pass a law to stop these sweeps. They have no authority of law, and they're killing people. They killed my neighbor. The sweep in 2016 died the next day on the bike trail. You can't see this, okay? And you can't see the solutions. You do not see. Do you understand? This is fascinating. And Amanda, I want to thank you for carrying water for Right to Dream. Okay, you paid a political price for that, and I appreciate that. okay? Others here haven't done anything. And Joanne, you're new, and I appreciate your new energy here. It needs some. Maybe the females here can have a little more compassion and stop these sweeps and stop killing people. But the best thing to do is to create these small villages just like Right to Dream, of which we need 200 of them in this city. The count, when I took my count, there was an undercount of a factor of 5. Okay? So whatever the homeless count was 2 years ago, you multiply that times 5. Okay? This is a sick process.
Thank you.
And you wonder why people protest? Because they are not being heard.
Thank you.
Mr.
Commissioner Fritz.
Mr. Callahan, I appreciate your kudos. I just need you to know that, yes, I did work to move Right to Dream 2 for 4 years. It was Mayor Wheeler and his staff, Burke Nelson and Seraphy Allen in particular, who finally got it done.
Thank you.
For the record, just because I don't want people in the public to be confused, during the winter weather emergency, contrary to what you just heard, there were no camp cleanups, no camps were moved. In fact, we opened all of the emergency shelters. We opened additional shelter beds. We did a significant outreach effort to let everybody know, and I stated publicly that nobody would be turned away. Nobody was turned away. We asked city employees to volunteer their time and their energy to help get people to the shelters. We put a call out to the public. I myself volunteered on Saturday night to help transport people to the shelters. So while there are strong statements made here, and people have every right to make those strong statements, and I think it helps at least further the debate and the conversation, which I see as ultimately as a positive. Sometimes what we hear is not always completely factually correct. First time certain item, please.
Mayor,
Carla.
let's do the consent agenda first.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Commissioner Fish. Which items have been pulled from the consent agenda, Carla?
We have 122, 124, 125, 126, and 127.
Very good. Please call the roll on the remainder of the consent agenda.
Fritz?
Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Hardesty?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. The consent agenda is adopted. First time certain item number 119, please.
Venture Portland Annual Report to Council.
Thank you, Mayor. As the council liaison to Venture Portland, I'm proud to welcome a number of guests this morning, including Heather Hale, Executive Director of Venture Portland, Matthew Macetic, President of Venture Portland's board and owner of Red Castle Games in Southeast Foster. And I had a chance to visit with Matthew the other day, and I usually buy a Christmas puzzle at his store every year, and this year I bought a puzzle that we could not master. So we were, despite all the efforts of my family, this puzzle that had a picture of a scenic view of London.
Can I have it?
I'd be happy to. It's the hardest puzzle I've ever encountered. If you can do this, you're going to go up in my esteem. We're also joined by Jody Francis, the Catalytic Investment Initiative Manager, Josh Nishikawa, the Vice President of the Gateway Area Business Association, and Liz Smith, Venture Portland Delegate and Board Member of the St. John's Boosters Business Association. Liz, it was great to join you and the Boosters at the tree lighting ceremony and that wonderful event that you helped to host. She is also the owner of Busy Lizzie Social Media Marketing. Venture Portland serves colleagues our 50 neighborhood business districts, which represent over 19,000 individual businesses and provide nearly 270,000 jobs throughout our neighborhoods. The average small business in our city employs 3 or fewer people. That's small. And when we shop local, we are reminded that 70 cents of every dollar stays in our local community. Venture Portland provides great opportunities to our community, including grant programs, trainings, and technical assistance to our many and diverse business districts. One of the most impactful programs, in my opinion, is the Catalytic Investment Initiative, which this council has funded, which is designed to bring increased capacity and resources to business districts in North and in East Portland. Venture Portland continues to make a huge difference in traditionally underserved business districts. I look forward to continuing to support this program as well as other programs in the future. And with that, I'm pleased to turn the program over to Executive Director Heather Hale. Heather, welcome.
Thank you.
I guess
Or
I'm
turn
going
it
to be
over
up
to
first.
Matthew.
Yeah,
Welcome.
all right, thank you. Thank you for that glowing introduction, Commissioner Fish. You stole a couple of my talking points, but I'm sure everyone will appreciate me talking a little less today. So thank you all for having us today. We're happy to be here. My name is Matthew Macetic. I own Red Castle Games on Southeast Foster. We also sell very challenging puzzles. And I'm also the president of Venture Portland, as well as the past president of the Foster Area Business Association, and I'm involved in a few other community organizations as well. I want to welcome you, Commissioner Hardesty, belatedly to council at this point, but it's nice to have the opportunity to meet you, and I hope we can have a great relationship and do a lot of good for the small business in our city. So Red Castle Games, I'll just give a quick plug. We had a great year last year. We grew about 18%, and a lot of that was through programming that we've implemented on Foster through the association. We have what's called a Foster tasting tour that is a pub crawl on one part, but also an opportunity for businesses to introduce their wares and services to new clients as well. And we had a tremendous response of new customers. We also introduced Foster Winterfest, a pay-it-forward style system where you'd make a purchase at one business, you get a ticket, and it would incentivize you to go to further businesses. This was a huge component of our success during the holiday season, and I think it's very illustrative of the work that the Catalytic Investment Initiative has done to help small businesses in the city grow. As you mentioned, there's 19,200 small businesses spread throughout 50 districts. And that works out to just under 400 businesses a district. So having that support system is really critical to our success so that we can continue to do great local programming as well as do a lot of the programming such as street fairs or the Jade Night Market we've had involvement in the past, and just help kickstart these great community events that we've come to love in Portland, and it's come to be part of our culture here and our amazing uniqueness as a city and our amazing uniqueness as individual business districts. You know, we're committed to the success of each individual neighborhood as well as the city as a whole. In Foster, one of the ways we worked with this is being welcoming to the new shelter that's coming in on Foster Road in the heart of our district. Rather than do as so many do and kick up their heels and just say no, we had a seat at the Foster Steering Committee. We had seats for other neighboring businesses, and we're determined to make this the most successful shelter in the city and become a model that can be emulated throughout the city. And I do want to credit Mayor Wheeler's office for being very responsive, and in particular, Sarah Fee Allen. I know I've mentioned her before, but she's been a phenomenal asset in the process and been very responsive, and I hope to, now that the new year is here, continue to connect with her and continue to work on issues around the shelter. I think one of the great things also with this shelter is the development of a community investment fund. You know, it's something where community members that are housed, unhoused, businesses in the area, we can create a plan to really proactively address what some perceived or other issues that may arise from these new people in our community. You know, we put together a plan to have programming in public places, try to get additional lighting, among other amenities, as well as create an environment where we can make sure that the housed, the unhoused, and those that are in shelter have opportunities to communicate, to get to know each other, because ultimately, public safety comes from knowing your neighbors, no matter who they are. And so we want to make sure we encourage that type of behavior and really welcome it into our community. But I'm really here to talk about Venture Portland. You know, at Venture Portland, we've had some great success this year. It's been our busiest year ever, as it seems to be every year at this point. We continue to grow our programming. We continue to offer more trainings, more not customer service, that's my industry, technical assistance, as well as just having more and more volunteer hours, both on our board as well as in all the business associations we serve. New programs like the not so new at this point, Catalytic Investment Initiative, have gone a long way to start to address some of the historic discrepancies in city investment in business districts, and I thank you for that program. We're the only entity that's working at this small, low district level to make sure that we have these unique opportunities in all of our unique neighborhoods. And it's also, I think, really critical to acknowledge that what's right for Foster is not right for Hawthorne or not right for St. John's. It's been really amazing to have programming that's both tailored to our individual needs, yet having that cohort that we can talk about issues that we have in our district or ideas for better events or improvement, and having that networking capability has been phenomenal for especially Foster, and I hope other districts as well. We are the support system for small business in the city of Portland and for business districts. Big business, they've got a support system, but we are the small business support system, and we support all these small businesses. Venture Portland has had a 22-year partnership now with the city, and we've invested $1.6 million in business districts that have also come back as a $5 million match. So for every dollar we invest, we're getting the private sector to invest an additional $3 or so. And I think, you know, it shows that business, particularly small business in Portland, is a little different, that for most of us, it's not just about business. We're members of this community. What's good for neighbors is good for business. What's good for everyone in this city is good for business. And so we want to grow that partnership and strengthen it with you, council. And we want to use our collective efforts to proactively address the issues that are facing our city. It's really, I think, been a humbling experience working with Venture Portland, in that, you know, seeing how much of an impact we can all have as individuals, but then when we collectively work together, the real problems that we can solve. And I think you're going to see some great numbers and hear some great stories from my colleagues today. We have our newest employee, Jody, with the Venture Portland. I'm sure she's excited to talk. And now I'm going to turn it over to Heather to get into some of the nitty-gritty. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Matthew. Good morning, Mayor Wheeler and commissioners. It's great to be with you this morning. My name's Heather Hale, and I'm the Executive Director of Venture Portland. As Matthew said, 2018 was a big year for Venture Portland and the neighborhood business districts we supported. The following brief overview provides a snapshot of our work over the last 12 months. After 8 years of sustained double-digit growth, Venture Portland once again expanded access to our capacity building programs, which are ably managed by Jacob Falkenberg and Evelyn Ferrara, who are sitting in the audience. We increased participation in our training and technical assistance program, with almost 400 business district leaders attending one of 33 trainings that covered everything from the legal roles and responsibilities of nonprofit officers to creating a new kind of enhanced services district to mapping assets in diverse and rapidly changing neighborhoods. And we addressed 593 district-specific requests for individualized assistance from business districts citywide. This in-depth, personalized support helped districts successfully navigate major leadership transitions and manage significant business mix, built form, and demographic changes. Over the last year, Venture Portland provided 2,665 hours of training and technical assistance to business district leaders from emerging and established districts citywide. To put our exponential growth over the last several years in context, in just the first 6 months of this fiscal year, we've already exceeded the total number of training and technical assistance hours we provided in all of 2014 and 15. We also significantly expanded access to our grants, awarding nearly $120,000 to fund 33 projects in business districts, leveraging just under $300,000, a 2.5 to 1 match, making these some of the most efficient dollars the city spends. Part of our grant making in 2018 included launching new funding streams to better meet the needs of neighborhood business districts at every stage of their life cycle. Hiring professional staffing is the single most catalytic thing an all-volunteer business district can do. Our new staffing Kickstarter grant helps 6 districts invest in professional staffing, 4 for the first time. Districts hired 5 organizers, generating roughly $80,000 in new payroll, an 8-to-1 match. The Staffing Kickstarter grant is a one-time grant to help districts make the leap from all volunteer operations to professional staffing. And I'm thrilled to report that as we enter 2019, 100% of those grant recipients will retain these new jobs in 2019. We also partnered with Travel Portland to create new destination investment grants that help districts invest in significant physical improvements that benefit customers and visitors. Portland's new tourism master plan identifies neighborhood business districts as significant tourism assets, and these grants directly contribute to Portland's international appeal. I want to give a specific shout out to the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability and the Bureau of Transportation. Both bureaus stepped up to assist Venture Portland and business districts during the application period for these grants by providing rapid response planning and permit assistance. PBOT sent staff to Venture Portland to meet with business district leaders in person and answer specific permit and right-of-way questions. Finally, 2/3 of all of our grant funding this last year went to underserved business districts in East and North Portland. The overwhelming majority of Portland businesses are neighborhood-based, which means neighborhood business districts truly power Portland's economy. All year, but especially during the holidays, Venture Portland ensured cash registers rang citywide. In addition to helping launch or expand 17 district events between Halloween and New Year's, we promoted, and I attended, 30 different retail promotions over 21 days, including Little Boxes, which incentivized 15,000 store visits and more than 6,000 purchases, a 13% increase over last year on Black Friday and Small Business Saturday. And Multnomah Village's Golden Ticket program, which incentivized shopping in neighborhood businesses and has generated $6 million in holiday retail sales over the last 6 years. These free, family-friendly celebrations featured Santa Claus, Santa Paws, and even Hanukkah Harry, plus festive lights, holiday treats, shopping discounts to help Portlanders stretch their holiday dollars. And with 70% of every dollar spent in a local business staying in Portland's economy, business districts made the season merry for everyone. In 2018, we deepened our relationship with the city, partnering with Planning and Sustainability, particularly Tyler Bump and his team, to design and implement a neighborhood business district demographics database. This innovative tool, available to the public, aggregates more than 40 data sources to provide neighborhood businesses and business districts critical economic and demographic information. We can all now easily find the number of businesses and jobs in a given neighborhood business district, business sectors that are growing or shrinking, average wages and commercial lease rates, and housing starts. The database also has individual and household demographics, including racial and ethnic background, age, and average household income in a district. Using this information, we're able to help neighborhood business districts better understand their community, serve their customers, and assess their membership and leadership to ensure they are reflective of the district they serve. Understanding and using this database has been a key component of our 3-part diversity, equity, and inclusion training series this year. It also underpins the Catalytic Investment Initiative's diversity benchmarks and, most recently, helped Central Eastside designate specific board categories for its Enhanced Services District. We continued to help business districts connect with City Council and its bureaus, supporting significant public infrastructure investments, including the Great New Park in Gateway, streetscapes, and other safety improvements. Venture Portland maintained its age-friendly business and sustainability at work designations, helped BES and PBOT mitigate the impact on business districts of large construction projects, and supported the Office of Community and Civic Life's name change. Venture Portland continues to applaud the council's unanimous decision to ensure business and neighborhood associations now receive the same city notifications regarding land use and construction. This corrected a long-standing systemic inequity and remains very positively received citywide. Speaking of notifications, while land use and zoning are frequently hot-button issues, neighborhood business district leaders have repeatedly shown that when provided information about proposed changes in their communities, they will rise to the challenge and work with you to find solutions to overcome some of our biggest obstacles. In particular, I want to note the collaborative and innovative examples recently set by Central Eastside, Foster, Kenton, and Lloyd. When given the opportunity to have a meaningful discussion with city leaders about the need to provide shelter or services for our most vulnerable citizens, all 4 districts not only supported placing shelters in their districts, but raised significant private funds to ensure their success. In partnership with Elders in Action, we produced Portland's inaugural Age-Friendly Business Awards right here in City Hall. Our awards ceremony, which recognized 11 neighborhood businesses, brought together nearly 100 age-friendly supporters and business owners. These awards, presented to diverse businesses and organizations, including Shop Adorn, the Multnomah County Elections Department, New Seasons, Portland Nursery, and Unitas Community Credit Union, celebrated organizations that employ and serve people of all ages well. As the first and only U.S. city, and one of just 9 cities across the world invited to be a founding member of the World Health Organization's global network of age-friendly cities, Portland has long been an international age-friendly leader. I'm proud to report that across the country, interest in adopting our exciting model and successful strategies for engaging businesses, large and small, in age-friendly activities is continuing to cement our status as a city. We're planning year 2 of the awards, and I look forward to your continued support of this unique program. Speaking of unique programs, Venture Portland strongly supported My People's Market in 2018, including providing significant promotion of the Lloyd Center pop-up. We also provided personal introductions connecting participating entrepreneurs of color with their local neighborhood business district. Last, but certainly not least, I want to recognize Venture Portland's dedicated volunteers, many of whom are here with us today. Our board, made up of 1 representative from each business district, contributed a whopping 1,255 volunteer hours. These volunteer hours, equal to 0.61 FTE, or giving me an additional 24-hour-a-week employee a year, were on top of the hours they already spend running their business and volunteering in their business district. Our success would not be possible without this incredible commitment. Last year, we transitioned our innovative East and North Portland pilot project into the ongoing Catalytic Investment Initiative. By providing stable funding for this proven program, City Council's ongoing investment, helped participating business districts generate significant success. I'm happy to introduce to you Venture Portland's new Catalytic Investment Initiative Manager, Jody Francis.
Thank you, Heather. Good morning, Mayor Wheeler, Commissioners. Nice to be here. As Heather said, my name is Jody Francis, and I manage Venture Portland's Catalytic Investment Initiative. This catalytic effort addressing disparity and gentrification in 8 targeted districts has 3 short-term goals to increase membership, volunteers, and revenue. I am thrilled to report that last year we once again radically exceeded all of our goals. After 2 years of increase, we once again added significant new members. Currently, almost 1/3 of all business district members in East and North Portland are new. We also significantly increased volunteerism across districts, diversifying business districts, all volunteer board leadership, so it is more in line with district demographics and bringing new voices and perspectives to the table. And finally, we helped districts generate $145,000 in new revenue to support neighborhood businesses. And that's not all. We also made significant progress on our long-term goals to create a business support network that crosses district boundaries, creates stronger ties between businesses and residents, and improve district identity and positive public perception of East and North Portland. We helped districts launch more than 24 events designed to connect residents with businesses and make cash registers ring in economically lagging parts of Portland. improved participation in East and North Portland with 62 positive media stories, and increased district capacity to help the city invest more than $100 million in public infrastructure projects. So how have we done it? We hired professional staff, behind me to my right, Dane Fredericks, Cody Galloway, Amy Hampton, Kelvin Hoff, Jeff Linnott, and placed them directly in business districts. We provided seed funding to help districts experiment with new programs to better serve their diverse businesses. And we provided innovative and personalized assistance to districts, including helping districts identify 49 geographic nodes or commercial clusters across 8 districts and 2 city quadrants, analyzing almost 10,000 diversity points, including business type, size, location, and longevity, plus business owner gender, ethnicity, and race to help districts set diversity benchmarks. Helping staff visit more than 3,000 businesses and using their feedback, adding 168 business benefits to better serve the business mix in these rapidly evolving districts, analyzing diversity and skill sets of 54 district volunteers, and almost 1,000 data points, including business type, size, location, longevity, and individual gender, race, ethnicity, leadership experience, seniority in districts, and on board. But wait, there's more. After the devastating cancellation of this event in 2017, 82nd Avenue once again kicked off the Rose Festival by hosting its annual parade. And the district revitalized its website, adding Meet Your Neighbor profiles of the district's diverse businesses. In October, we helped 82nd Avenue expand their signature event around the world in 82 dishes. This 10-day restaurant hop incentivized Portlanders to sample international cuisine at 24 businesses, generating more than 700 purchases and $5,000 in new revenue. Reflecting the diversity of their district, 70% of the participating restaurants are owned by people of color. Initiative funding provided material translation and dedicated staffing to successfully address cultural and language barriers with the district's diverse businesses. Foster launched an innovative partnership with PBOT last summer to proactively promote district business in advance of significant months-long construction for Foster's long-awaited streetscape. After expanding their annual tasting tour featuring 43 participating businesses, they kicked off Foster Faves, a 9-week Instagram campaign incentivizing customers to visit district businesses during construction. And in October, they hosted a new district-wide Halloween event providing PBOT's Safe Ride Home program at all participating bars. This public-private partnership truly set the standard for proactive business support before and during major infrastructure projects, and I strongly encourage PBOT to work with Venture Portland to continue in the future. Foster made sure the holidays were merry and bright by launching Foster Forward, a unique shopping incentive program that encouraged Portlanders to do their holiday shopping locally. They produced a video explaining the program and capped it off with Winterfest, a series of family-friendly holiday activities hosted by Foster businesses, followed by a first-time lighting of carts on Foster with more than 20,000 twinkling lights. It is my pleasure to introduce Jason Niskawa, Vice President of the Gateway Area Business Association. Jason.
Thank you, Jody. Good morning, Ted Wheeler and the commissioners. As Jody said, my name is Jason Nishikawa, and I'm the Vice President of the Gateway Business Association. I'm also a CPA and principal at Urban & Company CPAs, and I lead the brewery group. Last spring, we were thrilled to join Commissioner Fritz in opening the Gateway Discovery Park in the heart of our business district. Our district, which long suffered from systemic disinvestment, is now filled with palpable new energy as our diverse community finally has a place to gather together. The park also provides a long-needed venue for public events. In 2018, we partnered with the Parks Bureau to launch 2 new signature events that utilized and promoted the park and its amenities. Our first event, Cruising Gateway, All Wheels Welcome, gave a nod to the historic cruising that occurred along the Halsey-Wheeler corridor, but focused on our future as a regional transportation hub with bike, electric car, scooter, and skateboard demos, as well as information about our new park, Gateway Green. When the weather turned, we hosted Celebrating Gateway, an international winter festival in the park, highlighting our community's diverse cultures and unique winter traditions at a family-friendly event that promoted positive programming after dark. Gateway is one of Portland's most diverse neighborhood business districts. With more than 36 languages spoken in David Douglas schools, I'm proud that our board leadership accurately reflects our community's diversity. To showcase our diversity, we used funding from Venture Portland's Catalytic Investment Initiative to hire a local photographer and invest in professional photos of Gateway businesses and their owners. These high-quality, unique photos tell the story of our district, feature prominently on our new website, and provide a critical professional asset, which was out of reach for most of our businesses. Finally, last fall, we convened with a new Gateway Leadership Council, bringing together leaders from 3 neighborhood associations, 4 community groups, and our business association to reset our relationship with Prosper Portland and productively identify new opportunities and emerging assets related to the $35 million in public investment coming to Gateway in the next 12 months. Our ability to play this important leadership role in our district strengthened our businesses and serve our community as a direct result of our participation in the Catalytic Investment Initiative. Thank you for your continued support in the investment in Gateway and in East Portland.
And isn't Gateway the oldest business district? I think it may
so.
be.
It's the largest.
And I think
You've got 2 different districts at the table here who both claim to be the oldest. It's probably a good thing they're separated.
It's one of
by
the
table.
oldest.
Yes.
So it's really impressive that your advocacy over many, many decades has resulted in this place, which the chair of your business association, when we did the opening of Gateway Discovery Park, said it was the first time 106th and Halsey has been favorably compared with Paris.
Absolutely.
And I think that was absolutely true.
We should also acknowledge that Commissioner Fritz has a long-standing relationship with the Gateway Area Business Association, and I'm now old enough to remember that she was named GABA Person of the Year. And then she put that in her voters pamphlet and won convincingly. So I think there's a lesson there.
Thank you, Jason. It's good to have you here with us. In 2018, Kenton launched a new district map featuring their iconic Paul Bunyan statue. And after winning Restore Oregon's coveted Tomorrow Award for Paul's community-funded $80,000 renovation, they launched Deck the Paul, a holiday celebration featuring district-wide lighting. Kenton expanded its annual garage sale in participation with the Kenton Neighborhood Association and continued its long support of the Kenton Women's Village by investing in new heaters for the residents. Finally, 2019 will be an even bigger year for Kenton as it happens to be as they celebrate Paul's 60th anniversary at their 10th annual street fair in May, which happens to be the first street fair of the season, and we hope that you will join us as it promises to be a great party. In partnership with the Water and Parks Bureaus, Midway expanded its 2nd annual Midway Thriving event at Powell Butte in June and continued to support the district's celebration of diversity at the Midway Festival of Nations. They also continued to update their website, which features microsites for Midway businesses and plays a critical role in reducing Midway's disproportionately large digital divide. And they hosted Commissioner Fish, Fritz, and Vega Peterson at their ongoing monthly district lunch. When Venture Portland created the initiative, we knew that for the catalytic investment of this magnitude to succeed long-term, it would require a 3 to 5 year effort per district. The program's ultimate goal was to invest heavily in districts until the programmatic and financial capacity were self-sustaining. Once that happened, they would graduate from the initiative, and we would bring on another district in need. Following Montevilla's successful program graduation, St. John's is the newest Catalytic Investment Initiative participant. It is my pleasure to introduce Liz Smith, Chair of the Banners Committee and member of the St. John's Boosters Business Association. Liz?
Thank you, Jody.
Yeah.
I brought props too. You hold my prop. Good morning, Mayor Wheeler and commissioners. As Jody said, I am Liz Smith, and I am a member of the St. John's Boosters Business Association Board, formed in 1926. I also chair the St. John's Banner Committee, represent the Boosters on Venture Portland's board, and own Busy Lizzie Social Media Marketing, a small business consultancy. Like all of Portland, St. John's is changing. With hundreds of new apartments, residents, employees, and commuters in our district, we wanted to make sure our identity didn't get lost in transition. Working with Venture Portland, we secured grant funding to hang 20 beautiful banners last spring. Our unique banners were designed by a well-known St. John's artist, Al Sharif, and reference our district's unique assets, including the river, parks, and historic bridge. And if you can see, there's a little bicycle on here, too. We added that for the future greenway. We included our website on the banners, and after they went up, traffic to our website increased 30% and has continued to grow steadily over the last 10 months. After the banners launched, we repurposed the design to create more than 100 welcome baskets filled with coupons and logoed items from St. John's businesses. Baskets were distributed to new residents in 3 of St. John's new apartment buildings. And I'm thrilled to announce we will hang another additional 20 banners in our district this spring. St. John's is extremely thankful for the opportunity to join Venture Portland's Catalytic Investment Initiative. With Venture Portland's help, over the last 7 months, we significantly expanded 2 of our signature events, producing family-friendly holiday festivities, including safe trick-or-treating and Portland's first tree lighting, that attracted more than 3,000 attendees. I'd like to give special thanks to Commissioner Fish and his team and the staff at BDS and PBOT for their quick amendments to construction permits impacting our plaza. These critical changes allowed our tree lighting to occur and ensured the St. John's Farmers Market could continue its ongoing operations. Thank you for investing in St. John's and businesses through Venture Portland.
Thank you, Liz. As you may have noticed, the Williams District is undergoing massive change, with 10 new high-rise buildings, more than 1,000 new apartments, and 100,000 square feet of retail space. The district has been under construction for the last 4 solid years and will likely remain that way for the next 2. To remind the people that Williams isn't just a difficult construction site, we used Catalytic Investment Initiative funding to expand Walk Williams, a monthly event featuring late business hours, discounts, deals, and district-wide entertainment. Williams also launched a Halloween event this year to provide safe trick-or-treating options for district kids and expand their map, which once again highlighted the historic Black Williams Project markers. Last but not least, Williams hosted their 2nd annual Williams Gives campaign, partnering with Boise Elliott School, Ethos, Friends of the Children, SEI, and the Vancouver Avenue First Baptist Church to ensure the holiday was merry and bright for those in need. Their generosity was matched by fellow business districts citywide. Local businesses donate to local charities at more than twice the rate of national chains. In fact, in 2018, Portland's nonprofit neighborhood business associations donated more than $100,000 to other local charities citywide, while neighborhood businesses collectively contributed more than $1 million to help keep Portland a wonderful place to live, work, and play for all.
Thank you, Jody. Our ongoing public-private partnership truly drives Portland's economy. Last year, Portland's neighborhood businesses contributed more than $100 million in taxes to fund essential city services like first responders and parks. And now, it's once again your turn as we lead into Valentine's Day to show a little love to neighborhood businesses by continuing to invest in the businesses and business districts that make Portland, Portland. As you design the FY 19-20 budget, we ask you to continue the ongoing funding that enables us to support business districts citywide and provide deep and targeted assistance to those in historically underserved East and North Portland. Your investment in Venture Portland and the city's neighborhood businesses provide critical stability for the professional staff and district volunteers working to strengthen our economy and ensure our shared prosperity. It's a pleasure and a privilege to work with all of you and your bureaus. Together, we are growing business and connecting neighborhoods. Thank you for your support.
Thank
Mayor
you.
Wheeler.
Commissioner Fish.
That is Venture Portland's annual report. Before a motion is made to accept the report and comments from council, I want to just acknowledge that we received a letter, each of us received a letter from Pastor Matt Hennessy of Vancouver Avenue First Baptist Church, who wrote to offer his strong support for the work of Venture Portland. And we know that he's not just the senior pastor at Vancouver Avenue First Baptist Church, but he's also chair of the board of Ecumenical Ministries. So we thank Pastor Hennessy for putting a letter in. And I also want to acknowledge that while Heather didn't put this in her presentation, one thing that we've learned in the last couple of years is every time we have these big snowstorms, and as people know, the last week we've been buffeted by daily snowstorms that have been heralded by KGW and the city. Well, maybe not quite the storms we expected, but still, what we learned in past years is our messaging was a little off. And we used to tell people during storms, you know, stay home, be safe. And now what we encourage people to do is stay local. In other words, don't plan any big trips, don't get in your car and go, but it doesn't prevent you from walking to your neighborhood business. And frankly, it's during big snowstorms that our local businesses need our help the most. And so, for example, my daughter and I went out and ate at a local restaurant Saturday night. Apparently, I wasn't the only person who went to my local grocery store. There wasn't much left when I got there. But so we encourage people during inclement weather to think about supporting a local business because that's a tough time for them. And that could include going to a restaurant or buying something local, whatever. But I wanted to highlight that because our messaging was off a couple of years ago. And thanks to Venture Portland, I think we're now more unified in encouraging people to shop local while they are also dealing with these storms. So with that, I would make a motion to accept the report.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Fish, a second from Commissioner Hardesty. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Fritz.
Thank you very, very much for the report and for all your work. Thank you, Commissioner Fish. I noticed how many of the photographs you are prominently featured. So it's really impressive that your health challenges have not slowed you down and that you continue to be such a champion for businesses, small businesses all over Portland. And if there's anybody visiting from outside of Portland, I bet they're really jealous as we're watching this. And all this with no sales tax. So thank you for the work that you do. It really is important and it does make Portland, Portland. I'm looking forward to having a try at that puzzle from Redcastle. Aye.
Fish.
I want to thank Heather, Matthew, Jody, Jason, and Liz for joining us today. I want to thank all of our 50 neighborhood business districts for stepping up and for being such a vital part of our local economy. You know, all the data reminds us that we invest local, it helps our local economy. And it is tempting, I think, in this new world to do our shopping online, but I will remind the listeners that companies like Amazon don't pay local taxes, they don't support Little League, they don't give back to the local communities. Our local businesses do, and they do it consistently. And furthermore, I thought it was very powerful when Matthew reminded us that during a very divisive debate about a shelter in Foster, and frankly, these debates are inherently divisive. It's just the nature of them, and there's usually a lot of pushback and some anxiety initially, and then the tide turns. To have a local business district at the table talking about the importance of being welcoming to all is very powerful, and we thank you for that leadership. I'm proud of our catalytic investment initiative and the fact that the council has provided long-term funding. It is clearly paying off. We're grateful to all of our small businesses and frankly want to grow our small businesses, help them add payroll and additional employees. Heather, it's an excellent report as always, and once again, I'm very proud to support your work. Aye.
Hardesty?
Thank you. I greatly appreciate it. Oh, I turned it off?
No, now you're
It
muted.
keeps going on and off. Sorry, you turned, no, it's off. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your report. I would love to be able to review information in advance of the city council meeting, so maybe next time I could get the report before you present. I vote aye.
Wheeler.
Well, I enjoyed this presentation last year. I enjoyed it even more this year. I appreciate the fact that you keep data and you keep metrics and you measure your outcomes in a way that the council can actually see and appreciate when budget time does roll around. I also want to acknowledge, as my colleagues have, the importance of small business in terms of creating shared economic prosperity for our community. It is a very high priority for me. It addresses a lot of the other issues that we spend a lot of time talking about here as well. If we can connect people to employment, if we can connect people to wealth building opportunities, if we can engage in trying to generate wealth for our community and for our neighborhoods, that is ultimately healthy for families and it is healthy for the community. And it goes without saying, as Heather mentioned right up front, this is a small business town. That doesn't mean we don't have large companies here. That doesn't mean we don't like large companies here. It just means, given the structure of our local economy, we have to acknowledge and support small businesses. And this is one of the many ways that this council chooses to support small business enterprise in this community. So thank you for your excellent work, and I look forward to next year being even better. I vote aye, the report's accepted. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you.
Next item, Carla, let's go to time certain item 120.
Amend Civil Rights Code to add non-religion such as atheism, agnosticism, and non-belief to the definition of religion.
Commissioner Fritz.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm very happy to bring forward this ordinance. Ever since I've been on the council, over 10 years now, I've held 2 half hours every week for what we call constituent spots, where anybody can come in and talk to me about anything. And sometimes my response is, well, that's really interesting, thank you for telling me. And sometimes it's, that's really interesting, and it would take my entire staff 20 years to get that done, but I appreciate knowing about this. Sometimes it's, well, actually, that's another council member's responsibility, so I'll put you in touch with them. And sometimes it's like, wow, I'm very interested in this, let me see if I can do something about it. A couple of previous instances were when we did the conflict-free minerals resolution about using minerals in computers that are not procured in a horrendous way in Africa. And another one was the behavioral therapy for children experiencing autism, which eventually became a state law as well as a local one. And this is another one that came to me as a constituent, bringing it to my attention, and I had never thought about the challenge, and I thought, well, this sounds really interesting, and please go talk to the Human Rights Commission about it to see if they also share your concern. So that happened, and my staff worked with community members, and here we are today. We are asking Council to support amendments to our Civil Rights Code presented in Exhibit A. The most substantive change is the inclusion of non-religion, such as atheism, agnosticism, or lack of belief in God or gods, in the protected class of religion. While existing Oregon courts have recognized this, state law does not expressly prohibit discrimination based on non-religion. This leaves many of our community members vulnerable. This ordinance has been shepherded by my office and the City Attorney's Office in partnership with community advocates, some of whom are joining us today. Cynthia Castro, my policy advisor, and Kimberly McCullough, the policy director for the American Civil Liberties Union of Oregon, will explain more.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Fritz. Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Cynthia Castro. I'm a policy advisor for Commissioner Fritz. Prejudice towards the non-religious, especially atheists, has been well chronicled in numerous independent studies conducted over the years. For example, a Gallup poll administered during the 2012 election season found that only 54% of Americans would vote for a well-qualified atheist president, ranking them below other candidate categories like Muslims and gays. In a separate survey, about half of American respondents considered atheists a threat to them. Another study reported American beliefs that atheists should be denied the opportunity to teach in public schools or the right to hold a rally. Non-believers also face discrimination in the workplace when trying to volunteer in securing housing and other areas of life. In Oregon, no religious group comprises a greater share of residents than the religiously unaffiliated, which includes atheists, agnostics, and nothing in particular. Portland was once ranked the most non-religious major city in the country, followed by San Francisco and Seattle. Yet our city civil rights code and state law do not extend non-believers the same protections afforded to those who ascribe to different faiths. We appreciate Cheryl approaching Commissioner Fritz and Kimberly last year to propose addressing this issue. Our office worked with the City Attorney's Office, Cheryl, Kimberly, and the Human Rights Commission to draft the proposed code changes. We also consulted city equity managers in the Office of Equity and Human Rights. The most substantive change to the Civil Rights Code appears on page 2 of Exhibit A. It reads, in addition to any other definition provided by law, the term religion used herein expressly includes non-religion, such as atheism, agnosticism, and non-belief in God or gods, as has been recognized by the courts. Non-religion is included in the protections and statutes across the country that prohibit discrimination based on religion. If we were to create a separate protected class, it actually undermines the argument that non-religion is protected in all of the statutes that don't list non-religion separately. Discrimination based on religion is just that. Discrimination is motivated by views that relate to religion and religious views that include anti-religious views, views putting one religion above others, or views putting religion above non-belief. It doesn't mean that non-religion is a type of religion. Providing protections for non-religion aligns with our city's intent to remove discriminatory barriers to equal participation in employment, housing, and public accommodations in the city of Portland. As we were reviewing the Civil Rights Code, the City Attorney's Office found outdated Oregon Revised Statute citations. We are taking this opportunity to propose updating them. We are also interested in adding well-established exceptions that allow a church or religious institution some latitude in hiring decisions. ORS 659.0064 permits a church or other religious institution to hire based on religious preference when certain conditions are met. ORS 659A.0301 permits an employer to make hiring decisions based on protected status when they are based on bona fide occupational qualifications. City equity managers and Office of Equity and Human Rights staff also suggested revisions to language in Chapter 23 to be more inclusive, such as using gender-neutral pronouns. We recognize that other changes to Chapter 23 may be desired. To be clear, this project is not a comprehensive overhaul of the entire chapter. It addresses the issues that have been outlined. Now I'm going to turn it over to Kimberly.
Thank you, Mayor Wheeler and members of the commission. My name is Kimberly McCullough. I'm here on behalf of the ACLU of Oregon. I'd like to start with some thank yous. First to Cheryl Colby and the Freedom from Religion Foundation for bringing this idea to us, to Commissioner Fritz and her staff, and in particular Cynthia Castro for helping hearing us and helping us with many rounds of edits. This was actually a bit of a complicated project, and I'm so glad that we had the collaboration, and also the city attorney, I think, provided a lot of really great information. I also want to thank the Human Rights Commission for hearing us, for asking really great questions. We had wonderful dialogue with them and appreciate their support. So to the ordinance, our organization has a long history of advocacy for religious freedom and separation of church and state. We believe that all people, regardless of what they believe or what they don't believe, deserve equal access to education, housing, employment, and public accommodations. We also believe that all people, regardless of what they believe or don't believe, deserve to live in our communities with protections from discrimination. And we have fought in the courts to ensure those protections, and we have also argued that our protections against discrimination based on religion do include protections for atheists, agnostics, and non-believers, and fortunately, most courts have agreed with us. But we do think that clarity in the law is crucial for the public to understand their rights and to understand that there are mechanisms for them to be able to advocate for themselves when they face discrimination. So we appreciate this ordinance so much and the way that it provides that clarity to the people of Oregon. Now, when we've had some discussions about this, the question has come up about, does this kind of discrimination happen? And in fact, yes, it does. And I think that Cynthia Castro explained to you some of those, some examples of that. We also actually had a fairly prominent case here in the state of Oregon that the ACLU of Oregon filed an amicus brief in, a friend of the court brief, that went up to the Oregon State Supreme Court. And in that case, what happened, there was an employer that owned a painting business. His employee was a painter, and as soon as the employee took the job, he faced what he felt was pretty intense religious discrimination based on the fact that he was non-religious. Now, his employer was an evangelical Christian and felt that he should be evangelizing to everyone, including his employees. He repeatedly, over and over and over again, told his employee that he needed to go to his church. He even went so far as to call him at home during his off hours to try to get him to go to his church. He started telling him that he was going to go to hell, that he was a sinner, that he could not do his job properly unless he was Christian and went to his church. He even reached out to this person's loved ones and his fiance to tell them the same things. And so this person, in the power dynamic they were, and as an employee, felt really uncomfortable and felt very harassed. They actually went to our Bureau of Labor and Industries, who decided to advocate for them. When this case went to the Supreme Court, our Supreme Court did say that our state-level protections that protect against discrimination based on religion do extend those protections to an atheist in a circumstance like this. And so, that was basically what we argued in that case. I think that it's just very important that people understand that and that people of Portland do understand that. So that's why we just really love this clarity in the law. Our national organization and our other affiliates have been engaged in litigation similar to this, many other places, and so there are other examples, but I won't go through them today. So we really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. Glad that this ordinance is here, and hope that you will pass it. So thank you.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioner Fritz. Isn't something I would have thought about, that people would be discriminated against, but I appreciate the story, Kimberly, and my condolences on your grandmother. I'm glad you're back and look forward to you this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
At this time, I would like to invite Cheryl Colby, president of the Freedom from Religion Portland chapter, as well as Dr. Crystalie Crane and Michelle Wilson from the Human Rights Commission. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm up, I think. My name is Cheryl Colby, president of the and founder of the Portland area chapter of Freedom from Religion Foundation, and I am a director on their national board as well. FFRF is a nonprofit organization of non-believers that works to protect the constitutional principle of separation of state and church and to educate the public on matters of non-theism. It has more than 31,000 members, and in Oregon there are over 1,000 members, including many who would live or work in Portland. I am like you in many respects. I value freedom and my family. I believe in compassion, public service, kindness, and consideration of all. I believe all communities should be welcoming to all people. I differ from many in that I simply lack a belief in a God or gods. What I don't believe in is that this one factor, being a non-believer, is justification for discrimination. The ordinance before you would protect all non-believers in the city of Portland. At present, neither the city nor the state expressly prohibits discrimination based on non-belief, leaving it open to the courts to interpret whether we are protected or not. Even though existing courts, Oregon courts, have thus far interpreted that non-belief is included, there are in fact courts across the country that have made the other decision, that have concluded that we are not protected. In the real world, opinions change, judges are replaced. This should not be left to the interpretation of the courts. I wish to be very clear. This is not a question about which is right or better, religion or non-religion. It is about protection against discrimination. We are not asking for any special privileges or rights. We are merely asking for the same protection against discrimination in housing, employment, and accommodations that are afforded to those in religion. Now, I own my own home, well, the bank does, am retired, and am fortunate to not need any accommodations. So why am I passionate about this? For me, this change is a validation that I am a human being of the same value to society as my fellow Portland community members. It says, my city values me and affirms that it is unacceptable for others to discriminate against me and others like me. Validation matters to me. What does it mean to others? It means that they would have the backing of the law. They will know their rights. Legally, they cannot be rejected for a job, fired, or treated any differently than other employees solely based on their non-belief. Their rental application or request for accommodations can't be rejected simply because they are irreligious. As a non-believer, I'm not alone. According to a 2015 study, Portland is the most religiously unaffiliated metro area in the nation. This will positively impact many people in Portland. This change is supported by Freedom from Religion Foundation, Humanists of Greater Portland, Secular Coalition for Oregon, Center for Inquiry for both Portland and Southeast Portland, and Protect Our Children. This action will show Portland as a leader. To the best of my knowledge, Portland would be the second city in the country to make this kind of change. In case you were wondering, the first city is Madison, Wisconsin, the home of FFRF, the national headquarters. This change says that Portland chooses to make certain that non-believers receive the same protection from discrimination as those in any form of religion. This is very affirming for those of us who are atheist, agnostic, or any other form of non-belief. It is the right thing to do. I wish to express my deep appreciation to all who have been involved in this project. Kimberly from the ACLU for partnering with SFRF, Amanda Fritz for taking this issue up and being willing to, and your staff who have worked to help with this issue, and the excellent work done by the Human Rights Commission. It was a team effort. And I thank the City Council for taking time today to talk about this issue.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
For the record, my name is Michelle Wilson, and I'm a Human Rights Commissioner for the City of Portland, and I'm joined by Dr. Crystal Crane, who is also a Human Rights Commissioner. Thank you for affording us this opportunity to join the discussion. We'll share a little bit of the highlights of the Human Rights Commission's engagement with this issue and our recommendation to vote in favor of the non-belief ordinance. When Cheryl first provided public comment at the Human Rights Commission's February 8th, 2018 meeting, she shared that as of 2015, Portland is the most religiously unaffiliated metro area in the nation, again, with 42% self-identifying as such. This was according to the Public Religion Research Institute. As the founder and president of, and on behalf of the Portland chapter of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, Cheryl asked the Human Rights Commission to support the organization's request to City Council to change Portland's definition of religion to explicitly include non-belief as a protected class. The Human Rights Commission took notice. We at once realized that her request had immediate and important implications for Portland. We understood that this was about individuals, but also families, neighborhoods, and in many ways, a fundamental part of the city's identity.
And again, for the record, my name is Dr. Crystal Crane. Thank you. Our process wasn't as straightforward, yet as we all know, disrupting oppressive forces requires deliberate, meaningful, and often challenging efforts. We deliberately, as a full body, over a course of a few months in early 2018 and in conclusion with the calendar year, took up this issue and did our own research. Through due diligence and reaching out to our local, statewide, and even national networks, commissioners were able to get some of the questions answered that we had. In particular, Commissioner Perry reached out to a former colleague in Maryland whose experience within local government, and particularly the protected class codes and statutes, provided us with a valuable insight, especially when framing our approach to policy language. Internally, most of the commissioners were immediately on board, with a few hesitated, requesting more time to complete additional research and more information from the primary stakeholders like the Freedom from Religion Foundation. They initially believed that the city's current definition of religion and religious affiliation may already imply non-belief, but as I think we've heard today, that may not always be the case. As a body, we reflected on the ways in which just about all of our current social institutions are framed by one belief system or another, and how this increases the vulnerability of people who have no religious affiliation to be excluded, shamed, and exploited. Our conversations were robust and included data-driven reports and first accounts of prejudice and discrimination that people who identify as having non-religious belief experience in the workplace, socially when accessing care, and their ability to secure housing, to access various public services, and in generally participating in our culture that is entrenched with religious beliefs and affiliation. There have also been little to no representation in government for people with non-religious beliefs. The Pew Research Center's 2017 survey found that Americans generally express more positive feelings toward various religious groups today than they did just a few years ago. And this doesn't continue to apply to folks in the Muslim belief or folks who identify as atheists. So we felt as a commission that we wanted to engage in self-reflection, research, and be able to come back and support the community in trying to find a resolution to this issue.
Quickly, at least in government time, the Human Rights Commission resolved to support the Freedom from Religion Foundation. With one abstention and no commissioners opposing, on March 8th, 2018, the motion passed to update the city's definition of religion to include atheism, agnosticism, and non-belief in order to protect against discrimination. I, along with former Commissioner Malone, met with Commissioner Fritz to discuss the Freedom from Religion Foundation's request. We informed her that the Human Rights Commission did vote in favor of supporting the change to city code. Commissioner Fritz advised us that the next step would be to include her fellow council commissioners and Mayor Wheeler in the conversation, and we did. We are here today because the Freedom from Religion Foundation, especially Cheryl, called upon the Human Rights Commission to stand up for what is right. Our official recommendation to council is to vote in favor of the non-belief ordinance, effectively changing Portland City Code, Chapter 23.1. The brief but nonetheless real buy-in issue that we faced within the commission illustrates that regardless of our expertise and intentional commitment to protecting human rights, we too fall prey to value-based privilege. We simply don't know what we don't know. Our collective understanding required a bit of work and a willingness to hear from community members in open and validating ways. I mention this to illustrate an important point. We believe that this outcome is a beautiful example of government working as it should, with and for communities we serve. Our collaboration with Cheryl and the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the American Civil Liberties Union of Oregon, especially Kimberly, Portland City Council members and their support staff, especially Commissioner Fritz and her policy advisor, Cynthia Castro, various community stakeholders, city attorneys and legal advisors, the Office of Equity and Human Rights, and even a representative from the state of Maryland, is illustrative of how impactful, diligent, and respectful cooperation can and should be.
I also would like to conclude by saying that I feel like this process is emblematic of the way that the Human Rights Commission can be informative to the policies that the city puts forth. Our hope is that we are always aiming to be more inclusive, community-driven, and wanting to focus our changes in the city to not be based on one group's oppression, but how we can look at it from a perspective of collective liberation. So thank you for having us be a part of this process.
Thank you.
That concludes our presentation, Mayor.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for being here. Public testimony on this item, Carla?
Yes, we have 4 people signed up.
Very good.
The first 3 are Maggie, Robert Augenhaba, maybe, sorry, and David Gray.
Very good.
Go ahead, Maggie.
Hi. As a friend to the Church of the Triumphant Agnostic, whose motto is, "We don't know and we don't care," I'm very happy to have this resolution to acknowledge non-belief as a legitimate value system in Portland by the Human Rights Commission. Having said that, I would like to say that the Human Rights Commission and the city attorneys are dragging their feet on realizing that homeless people are a protected class.
Maggie, this is not about that again, and I ask you this every week, and I ask you very nicely.
It is on topic. It pains me that the Human Rights Commission isn't recognizing homeless people as human beings before the law. It pains me.
Do you support this ordinance or do you not support this ordinance?
Yes, I support it. You know, and I would support, you know, homelessness as a protected class as well. Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Robert Augenbaugh. I'm the president of Protect Our Children. Do atheists and non-believers need protection from discrimination? Please consider this. One recent poll found that 50% of Americans would not vote for a qualified atheist for president. A 2006 study found that 48% of respondents would not want their child to marry an atheist. In both studies, percentages of disapproval of atheists were above those of Muslims, African Americans, and LGBTQ individuals. Many of the respondents associated atheism with immorality, including criminal behavior. The Boy Scouts, who finally allow gays, still don't allow atheists. A University of British Columbia study found that believers distrust atheists as much as they distrust rapists. The study also found that atheists have lower employment prospects. Atheism and lack of regular church attendance have been used by courts to deny custody to non-religious parents. The Constitution of 7 U.S. states still bans atheists from holding public office. So discrimination against atheists and non-believers certainly exists. I think in Portland, we all agree that people should not be discriminated against based on their religious beliefs. And I think most of us agree that people should not be discriminated against based on non-religion. I don't think we want to leave this decision up to individual judges. And I think we do want to make it clear to those involved in housing, employment, and public accommodation that discrimination against non-believers is unacceptable. The city code is not completely clear on this point, and that's why this simple change is needed. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Good morning.
My name is David Gray. I don't have a prepared written statement. This will be very, very brief. I came here mainly to support Cheryl, who's a friend, and I'm also a member of FFRF and a member of the Humanists of Greater Portland, the local chapter of the American Humanists Association. I just want to say something about attitudes of most of us secular people. None of us, as far as I know, have a goal of banishing religion or disparaging those who follow religions. Not going to happen. And I have come to realize, I do consider myself an atheist, but I have come to realize over the last 5 or 6 years that there's a very wide spectrum of people who follow a faith. And I learned those lessons from my participation in an organization called the Interfaith Council of Greater Portland. So obviously they are tolerant and accepting of their different beliefs, or they wouldn't allow me to be in the Interfaith Council. It's a very good group of people. We have a Mormon lady, a Muslim lady, people who go to various Christian churches. And I have learned that religious people can be very, very good, compassionate, kind, generous people. Yes, are there intolerant atheists? I have to admit, yes, there are intolerant atheists who do tend to disparage people of faith because how can they believe that stuff? But I think that's a very small minority of us secular people. and religion is here to stay, and so is secular thinking, based on, in principle, based on rational thinking and science. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
I didn't
Thank
use
you.
up my time, so
Next
I would
three
like
people,
to say
please. Your
you
time
can
is up,
find.
Maggie. Next three people, please.
The next, last person who signed up is Dustin Hockland.
Come on down. We'll wait for you. He's upstairs in the balcony. So, Carla, while we have a brief break here, I notice you have a new person working with you. Why don't you
Thank you.
introduce
Yes, Mayor
her?
and Council, this is Keelan McClymont. She is the new Assistant Council Clerk.
Welcome.
It's great to have you here. Thank you.
Well, you're learning from the best.
We'll see. Okay.
So, Mayor, this is a non-emergency ordinance. I'd like to make a brief statement at the end.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah. There he is. Thank you for being here.
My name's Dustin Hoakland. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I don't have a whole lot to add. That the very intelligent ladies before me are very well prepared. I just want to go on record to say I support the non-belief ordinance. Just make sure I get it on the public record and say it out loud. Atheism and non-belief is just merely the not the belief in a deity, just as simple as that for most people. I did want to note that there is another group, firebrand atheists, anti-theists, and atheist activists that are a little more outspoken than maybe a traditional, just basic non-believer. I'd probably fall in that category. I do worry about participating in rallies or speaking my thoughts publicly for fear of losing my job or affecting my employment. So with that said, I would just want to say I really would like to see this ordinance passed so I can exercise my rights to freedom of speech and participate in rallies and things along those lines. Thank you all very much. I really do appreciate your time, and I hope we get this done. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Commissioner Fritz?
Thank you. So we've asked for the vote to be delayed until February 27th. I'm going to be out of town next week, and really appreciate Mayor Wheeler being willing to do that, even though he won't be here on the 27th. So did any of my colleagues want to make comments while our guests are here?
Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you. I just want to appreciate your leadership, Commissioner Fritz, in bringing this ordinance forward, and I don't see any problem with supporting it at all. I mean, we want to be a place of choice for employment at the City of Portland, and we want to make sure that people know that whatever their belief system, they will not face discrimination. So I don't see any problem.
I'll just add that I look forward to supporting this ordinance when it comes back. I also want to acknowledge that we had two members of the Human Rights Commission today that came and testified and shared with us the process they went through to engage this issue and their deliberations. And I hope that this becomes the norm and not the exception, that we hear directly from commissioners on these issues. I think it adds a lot to our debate and discussion. It has not always been the case, but those were superb presentations. And if we're going to have a commission that's charged with providing us guidance, we should hear from them from time to time on these important issues. So I appreciate that two commissioners took the time to share their perspective with us.
Yeah, and I'd like to share that sentiment as well. And Kimberly, since you're here and we're in agreement on this issue, I want to acknowledge that because I might not agree with you later this afternoon on a completely separate issue. But as I dug into this, I have come to the definite conclusion that this particular ordinance does not change any law or rights insofar as anything different than that is already acknowledged by the courts here in the state of Oregon and has been acknowledged by the courts in the state of Oregon. But I am persuaded that our ordinances are not clear on the point. And to the degree that we support a particular right, to the degree that we support a particular law, I think it is incumbent upon us to be crystal clear about those rights when it comes to our ordinances. So I view this as a long-needed technical cleanup of our ordinance, and were I to be here on February 27th, I would support it for that reason. Commissioner Fritz.
Thank you, colleagues. This does my activist heart good. And this is, as was said, government responding to community members and partnering with community members. So thank you, Cheryl Colby, for bringing this to my attention and then to the Human Rights Commission's attention. Something that you said struck me in particular. This is not about who is right. It's about being welcoming, it's about being inclusive, it's about nobody worrying about discrimination. So whatever anybody's beliefs, it's not about who's right, it's about being welcoming. Thank you, Kimberly McCullough from the ACLU, for being a wonderful resource for us as usual. Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Crane and Commissioner Wilson for testifying, the entire Human Rights Commission, including and also the Office of Equity and Human Rights Liaison Tatiana Alihalde, Dr. Markeisha Smith, who's here on her second day as being in charge of the Office of Equity and Human Rights, welcome, along with Dr. Kofi Dasu, who has been ably filling that role for the last year. Thanks to the City Attorney's Office, particularly Judy Prosper, Molly Gardner, Laurie Kraut, and Tracy Reeve. And I do also want to acknowledge my former staffer, Goldan Salazar, who worked with Claire Adamsick in my office, and now Cynthia Castro for carrying the baton over the finishing line. I also want to acknowledge Philip Wolf, who is here with us, and I particularly mentioned that there are other things in Chapter 23 that need to be addressed, in particular the captioning ordinance, which Mr. Wolf, as a Commissioner on Disability, was instrumental in bringing to the Council's attention a few years ago and has made us aware of some changes needing there. So we're not done on Chapter 23, but this is certainly a very positive step forward, and thank you very much, everybody, for your work on it.
Very good. This is a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading on February 27th, 2019. That takes us to the regular agenda, second reading, item number 129.
Authorize cost-sharing intergovernmental agreement for Levy Ready Columbia interim governance for $233,590 for fiscal year 1920.
Colleagues, this is a second reading of an ordinance. We have already heard a presentation and public testimony on this item. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Fritz.
Aye.
Fish.
Aye.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Portland's participation in the Levy Ready Columbia program puts us in partnership with other local, state, and federal government agencies, as well as businesses, environmental, and community organizations who are working together and are committed to reducing the flood risks along the Columbia River and planning for a safe and equitable future along the river. Our collective goal with our partners, to remind you, is to reduce the risk of flooding so we protect tens of thousands of jobs and residents, thousands of acres of farmland, and hundreds of acres of parks and natural areas. The intergovernmental agreement supports this important partnership to maintain, reinforce, and improve the Columbia River levee for the benefit of our communities today and tomorrow. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Next item, item 130.
Amend contract with Brown and Caldwell, Inc. for professional engineering services for the Columbia Boulevard Wastewater Treatment Plant Waste Gas Burner Replacement Project number E10649 in the amount of $338,935.
Commissioner Fish.
Mayor and colleagues, the Columbia Boulevard Wastewater Treatment Plant, as you know, is investing in the infrastructure necessary to safely handle methane gas. With our Poop to Power initiative, the city will dramatically reduce our dependence on the flaring of excess methane gas, which will reduce our greenhouse gas emissions dramatically. The existing infrastructure necessary for flaring is outdated and must be upgraded. It is so outdated, in fact, that the flare must be manually lit by a BES employee, which raises significant safety concerns. BES engineer Aaron Lawler is here to explain more. Take it away.
Thank you, Commissioner Fish, Mayor Wheeler, Commissioners. I'm Jim Brown, engineering supervisor with BES, and we had a little last-minute change with Paul Suto being called away.
Good.
And I'm here to with Aaron Lawler, who is the project manager for the Bureau of Environmental Services for the Columbia Boulevard Wastewater Treatment Plant gas burner replacement project. And I will turn it over to Aaron for a short presentation on the request today.
Good morning. Thank you for your time today. My name is Aaron Lawler, BES engineer. I'm here today to talk about the waste gas burner project. What we have here is an overview of the Columbia Boulevard Wastewater Treatment Plant, which is a CSO plant, combined sewer overflow plant, with a peak capacity of 450 million gallons a day of combined sewer and stormwater. Currently, Columbia Boulevard uses an anaerobic digester process to digest primary and waste-activated sludge, producing biosolids and biogas. The plant produces approximately 1.5 million cubic feet per day of biogas. When possible, as Commissioner Fish mentioned, the biogas is beneficially used, poop to power, including fuel for boilers to provide process and building heat, cogeneration to produce electricity, and sold to neighboring industrial companies. A separate project is also underway to further increase the beneficial use by converting it into renewable compressed natural gas for vehicle fuel use and injection into a pipeline. Just for clarification purposes, waste gas burners are also commonly referred to as flares, so you will probably hear me go back and forth between waste gas burners and flares. The initial presentation for this project was delivered on May 24th of 2017 to the council. It was to introduce the project to council and request for a PTE service agreement. That's a professional technical excellence contract with Brown and Caldwell. That was approved, and during the pre-design phase, we have identified some additional scope and fee requirements to complete this project. So we're here today to ask for an amendment to the original PTE contract to be able to meet our project objectives. Sorry, I got a little bit lost there. Sorry. So I'm sorry, where am I?
Right there.
There we go. So the waste gas burners are over 36 years old, as Commissioner Fish mentioned. They are significantly deteriorating, showing severe wear and corrosion, and creating structural and seismic issues, as well as safety issues for wastewater plant staff. So this project is intended to replace those flares and install new flares located at a new location and upgrade them to increase safety, capacity, reliability, and meet all applicable codes and requirements. The installation of the new waste gas burners will meet manufacturer installation and necessary code requirements. The new flares installed will have the capacity to flare all of the biogas produced at Columbia Boulevard, assuming all beneficial uses for biogas are offline, which is, of course, the worst case scenario. In the future, we hope that these will be used very rarely, only when our systems are down for maintenance and repairs. Although this is a code requirement to have the capacity to flare all produced biogas at Columbia Boulevard, so we will be meeting our permit and code requirements through this project. The flares at Columbia Boulevard provide destruction of methane gas prior to discharge to the atmosphere. This is reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Flares are only used when biogas is produced at Columbia Boulevard and not beneficially used. And as I mentioned, this is a permit requirement to have this capacity on site. This photo here shows the location of the new flares. We're currently looking at 3 flares located near digester 9 and 10, which puts it much closer to where we actually produce the gas. So the current budget and estimated total project cost is $3.5 million almost. This the entire project cost. This includes design, the consultant portion, the in-house portion, as well as the construction of the final installation. The current construction contract estimate is $1.7 million, and the proposed schedule is shown on this slide here. We hope to have construction completed at the end of 2020.
Commissioner Hardesty has a question.
Yes.
Excuse me, Aaron. Could you go back to the slide? Yes. So your confidence in this estimate is low.
Correct.
So 1.7 million is a high number. So what does that mean when you say your confidence is low, that would be the estimated cost?
Yes, so low cost estimate is tied directly to different classifications of cost estimating during project management and engineering. So during the pre-design phase, we have a lower cost estimate as there's more unknowns associated with the project. As we move through the phases of design, pre-design, design, advertisement, and finally get the construction bid, we adjust the cost estimate on a regular basis and update the confidence level. So this current one is a plus 50 minus 30% range. So in terms of the overall cost estimate.
So I didn't understand the last thing you just said. But let me ask you this. Once you have more confidence, are you going to be coming back to the city council and presenting that information to us?
Yes, in a later slide I will touch on that. But yes, we plan to come to council before issuing a contract to the construction, for the construction of this project.
Let me also add to our newest colleague, the estimating of confidence level is heavily prescribed in our contracting processes. And when we're doing initial scoping, it is typically in these large projects, you'll see low confidence. And that's because you don't know what you don't know. And there are going to be roadblocks that emerge, or we're going to discover something in the soil, or there's going to be something in the code or whatever. So bureaus are encouraged to be conservative in their estimating. What you would not want is them to come in and say high confidence level when they don't know what actually they're going to be facing. And this way, when there is an adjustment in price or an adjustment in scope, it isn't a shock to the system, and we're being transparent. But you'll see the low go to medium and then go to high over the course of various items that come back to council, including when we do actual work and additional contracting in the future. But it is not unusual at this stage to have a low confidence. And again, you'll see this in Water Bureau projects, in BES projects, in large-scale parks projects at the earliest stage when basically you don't know what you don't know.
And I, just to kind of add some clarity, the reason we are here today, again, in front of council is because we ran into some things that we didn't know when we initially scoped the project. So as the project scope and budget has increased, there's a threshold that requires us to come back to council and ask permission for the amendment.
Thank you. I was just a little nervous when you're asking for more money and you have low confidence in where you're headed.
Yes, understood. So the current BES 5-year capital program has the budget for the completion of this project, including this updated overall project costs. And yes, as I mentioned, this is this cost estimate is based off of a pre-designed tech memo with the class 4 estimate, which is the plus 50% minus 30% range in the overall project cost estimate. So this is a breakdown of the overall cost estimate. So the estimated project cost is everything to completion. The PTE support contract, that is what we are here in front of council today for, is an amendment to the original council, to the original contract. So it brings the total PTE support contract to $632,874 by the end of the project. The project was initially advertised on a quality-based selection. 4 proposals were received. Brown and Caldwell were selected based off of their qualifications and in accordance with the City Code 5.68. The initial negotiated fee was $293,939 for the original contract. Of that, the DMW ESB subcontracts participation was at 31.3%, above the aspirational 20% goal set by the city. which equates to $92,002 of DMW ESB contracts. The amendment is associated with relocating the flares instead of replacing them in their current location. It also has additional gas modeling to support the poop to power projects that we are creating. And then we identified some additional complexities in design. Amendment 1 scope and fee was then developed with Brown and Caldwell, and the total amendment is $338,935. That's the amendment we are requesting. Of that, there are optional tasks. That's again to help cover some of the unknowns that we're not quite sure there. So those require written approval by the owner's representative before they can use those funds. We made sure to include DMW ESB participation at the same level as the original contract. So after the amendment, we still have 31.28% participation of DMW ESB. This brings the updated contract not to exceed amount to $632,874. This is just an overall summary letting you know that the request today is about 10% of the overall project cost. And the overall project budget is listed there as well to demonstrate that. So that concludes my presentation, and I am requesting the authorization of an execution of a PT amendment with Brown and Caldwell with a contract not to exceed limit of $338,935.
That concludes our presentation, Mayor.
Very good. Any further discussion while we have this panel? Public testimony, Carla?
Yes, we have one person signed up. Maggie?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I think Maggie's waving. She's
Okay,
passing.
very good.
This
Colleagues,
goes to a second reading.
This is a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. Next item, item number 131.
Amend contract with Infor Public Sector, Inc. to increase the value of the contract by $2,011 for annual software support to cover additional licenses.
Mayor and colleagues, this matter is incorrectly labeled. This is actually a Bureau of Environmental Services item. And with your consent, I'd like this pulled back to my office.
No objection. Next item, item 132.
Authorize the Bureau of Transportation to acquire certain permanent and temporary property rights necessary for construction of the Northeast Columbia, Cully Boulevard, and Alderwood Road intersection improvements project through the exercise of the city's eminent domain authority.
Colleagues, Commissioner Udaly, of course, could not be here this morning. I've been asked to move this to February 20th. It was noted publicly on the Tuesday memo.
Yes.
Next item, 133.
Authorize the Bureau of Transportation to acquire certain temporary rights necessary for construction of the Springwater Connector project through the exercise of the city's eminent domain authority.
Same story, different ordinance. We're also requested to move this to February 20th. That was also noted on the Tuesday memo. Which gets us to the consent agenda, item number 122.
Item 122, grant a temporary revocable permit to New Singular Wireless PCS LLC for wireless communication services in the city.
Colleagues, this ordinance is the result of resolution number 37405, which the City Council previously...
Mayor?
Commissioner Fish.
I'm sorry. My guess is that this item is going to take some time. There's some public interest in this. I think we're going to be setting aside some time. We have, if I could just seek the indulgence of my colleagues, we have another item that was pulled, 127, for which we've tied up all morning, the city's forester. And I would just wonder if we could take 127 out of sequence, adopt the substitute, and just that's all the work we have to do today.
Without objection.
Actually, this staff has been waiting all morning as well.
My matter will take 10 seconds.
Let's take care of 127, and then we can at least excuse them. She's going to be sticking around for a while. Read 127, please.
127, establish an interim compensation rate for the revised tree inspector classification and create a new represented classification of tree inspector senior and establish an interim compensation rate for this classification.
So folks, I've handed out the ordinance with the revision. This gives us a little extra time to work out the details. This is a very straightforward matter. It has a broad support, and I'm seeking to offer this as a substitute.
Is that an amendment? I only have it as an amendment, and I don't have it, what it is.
I'm sorry, you don't have the paperwork?
Nope.
It just changes the timeline for working out a classification
Lynn, do
issue
you have
with
it?
labor.
No. All right, this is just an amendment. It's not a substitute. It's an amendment.
It's just an amendment.
Yes.
It's an amendment. It's non-controversial, and I move the amendment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, clarifying question. Does that mean then
Fritz.
that in the directions that the money, that all the directions are implemented or not implemented? They're going to be coming back with a different set of numbers in November?
Commissioner, I'm Nicole Wienia-Eide from the Bureau of Human Resources, and all the amendment does is change the effective date of the classifications
Right.
of the new classification and the compensation change,
And why is that?
to give us more time to implement the changes.
What implementation is necessary?
I can speak to that, Commissioner. Jen Cairo, City Forester. The types of changes we're making are things like updating standard operating procedures, trainings, manuals that we have to update in order to switch roles for some staff.
So I have a question. Are you ready?
I'm just, that it's a long time till November.
It will probably take place before then, but it will take place no later than November.
Right.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor. So will the employees that are impacted by this receive, will their pay be impacted over the 6 months it's going to take us to do the other stuff that you're going to do?
My understanding is their new duties will not be given to them until it is effective, at which case their pay will also be changed.
So then the effective date in the directions needs to be changed as well, because it says effective February 13th.
Right. Do you see where that is?
Yes.
So just as legal counsel, just want to note it occurs in all three of the directives. So I would like clarification as to whether all three directives need to have the new date as well.
I think there's, okay, so maybe I misspoke, and this was on consent, and we didn't hear from any council office of any concerns. The transition of switching out one group of employees for another is going to take a little longer for us to effect. The other terms and conditions have been agreed to. The transition is going to take longer, and that's why we're seeking the additional flexibility to work out those details. And this has been discussed with our labor partners, and this reflects the realities of doing a big lift in terms of having one group of employees take over the work of another group of employees, and we want to get it right.
So maybe a friendly amendment, Commissioner, that in each of the three directives, A, B, and C, change effective February 13th, 2011 to no later than November 1st, 2019.
I think we can, yes, we'll accept that as a friendly amendment. Thank you.
Very good. Any further discussion on the amendment? Call the roll on the amendment, please.
Fritz.
Aye.
Fish.
Aye.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The amendment's adopted. Is
This
there
goes
any?
to a second reading.
Is there any?
Is there any?
That's correct. Is there any testimony though on this item?
It's a pulled item. I don't have any sign-up sheet.
Anybody
for
want
this.
to
I'm sorry,
testify
I'm
on
sorry.
this?
Yeah, this one I don't. Right.
Seeing none, this is a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading as amended. Thank you. Back to item number 122, which is still an open item. This ordinance is the result of resolution number 37405, which the City Council previously adopted on December 19th, 2018, which outlined a partnership agreement between AT&T and Portland to provide common interests in accelerating broadband deployment in Portland. The City Council resolution authorized and directed the Office for Community Technology to negotiate a franchise agreement and execute a temporary revocable permit based on the franchise within 60 days of Resolution 37405 being adopted. That deadline is February 17th, 2019. AT&T and staff have been working hard to meet the deadlines outlined in the December resolution, and this ordinance accomplishes the first target. Jennifer Lee from the Office of Community Technology is here to answer any further questions. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Jennifer Lee, and I'm from the Office for Community Technology. I'm the program manager there responsible for negotiating and administering franchise agreements on behalf of the city. As the Mayor has noted, Resolution 37405 outlined a series of milestones for the partnership agreement with AT&T. I'd like to briefly go over those milestones right now. First, City Council directed OCT to negotiate and execute a temporary revocable permit with AT&T for small wireless facilities in the right-of-way within 60 days of the adopted resolution. 60 days, as you've noted, from December 19th is the Sunday, February 17th. As outlined in the partnership agreement, AT&T has agreed to pay a higher rate than what the FCC has deemed presumptively reasonable, and those terms are also in the TRP. Second, City Council directed OCT to negotiate and execute the franchise agreement based on the temporary revocable permit by June 30th, 2019. Third, City Council directed PVOT, Portland Bureau of Transportation, to negotiate and execute a master lease agreement by February 17th. Fourth, AT&T will prepay 5 years of franchise fees for small cells to the general fund and other permitting fees in 2 installments. The first installment will be $625,000 and is anticipated to be April 14th, 2019. The second prepayment will be September 30th, 2019. Fifth, AT&T will be donating $200,000 towards a local nonprofit who does work on digital equity issues. This donation to the nonprofit is anticipated by the end of 2019, if not sooner. So in less than 60 days, the city and AT&T have negotiated a franchise agreement for a 10-year term, which will supersede and replace AT&T's current grant of authority. AT&T has had a franchise agreement with the city since 2004. The new franchise that the city has negotiated with AT&T is intended to replace the previous agreement last negotiated in 2012. However, because of the time required to complete the formal franchising process required by the city charter and the timelines created by Resolution 37405, we ask City Council to grant AT&T a temporary revocable permit, which is under substantially similar terms to the new franchise agreement. The ordinance before you would grant a temporary revocable permit to allow AT&T access to the right-of-way for wireless communication services. This temporary revocable permit will be for a limited duration of up to 1 year. The temporary revocable permit will allow AT&T to proceed while the city works through the formal franchising process required by the city charter, which includes public notice. The new franchise agreement will then come before City Council for consideration once the formal franchising process has been completed, a process which we usually estimate can take up to 4 to 6 months. Staff anticipates that the first reading on the franchise will be in April or May 2019. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner Fritz first, please.
Are we allowed to not have 5G?
We are not. The FCC has issued a number of orders recently, most recently in, I think, August of 2018, and then there was a second in September 2018. The August 2018 order basically prohibited local governments from issuing a moratoria or effective moratoria on wireless installments. So basically, we can't say no.
And we appealed that, or we testified against that, didn't we?
We did. The City Council had an emergency session in October to authorize the City Attorney's Office to file a lawsuit or join in a lawsuit, protesting the overreach of the FCC, and that litigation is currently underway. It's been transferred to the Ninth Circuit very recently, And it's been combined with a number of other cases involving the small cell order, which was issued by the FCC in September 2018. So those are proceeding in the Ninth Circuit Court right now.
And this council is not allowed to consider potential health impacts. Is that still the case?
Yes, that's still the case. Local governments are preempted from taking into consideration in wireless siting decisions potential effects, environmental effects or health effects of RF emissions.
I think it was in 2009 that we had a resolution from the council.
There was a resolution in 2009, excuse me, there's a resolution in 2009. We also, City Council also adopted a resolution in 2012 saying the same thing, urging the FCC to update its health studies on RF emissions. There's currently also an open docket at the FCC that we've also urged the FCC to act on, and they have not.
Because they haven't even done the studies on it on 5G, have they?
I don't believe that the FCC does the studies themselves. I think they have scientists that take a look at what studies are out there, but I'm not certain on that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hardesty.
I thank you, and thank you, Commissioner Fritz. You asked a lot of the questions that I had. When do you anticipate the court case being heard?
I don't know. I think the transfer to the Ninth Circuit Court was slowed down by the government shutdown, and I'm not sure what is going to be happening next.
Commissioner Hardesty, I'm not the attorney on that. We can find an answer and get back to you on that. I wouldn't say it's imminent.
Yeah, I know the parties, all the local governments asked the courts for a stay, and that was denied. And we also asked, I think we also asked the FCC to stay their order too, but it was effective January 14th, I think, of this year, in January this last year.
And so does that mean that all local governments are being forced into a partnership with AT&T under another name? Is that an accurate statement?
I wouldn't say that. I think in Portland we've chosen to negotiate with AT&T and find common interests in their deployment of their wireless technology and what the city's priorities are, such as digital equity, closing the digital divide, ensuring that we have fair compensation for use of the right-of-way. Other cities may be taking different tacks, but partnerships agreements are things that other cities such as Boston, San Jose, Lincoln, Nebraska have all taken.
And is your office, this is intriguing, I just heard about this when it showed up on the agenda, so I appreciate my colleagues giving me an opportunity to learn more about this. Is there did you, in your negotiations, actually talk about the measly amount of community money, $200,000, to address the digital divide? When we're talking a multi-billion-dollar organization, that's a drop in the bucket, and that won't really help address the digital divide at all.
Those terms were discussed before our office started negotiations with AT&T on the franchise itself. So the December resolution had outlined all the terms, including the $200,000. So I personally wasn't a party to those.
So somebody else negotiated that deal before you were assigned.
I part of the direction from City Council. We've decided these things do these, the first of which is the TRP. So that's my role in this.
And just to put on the record, does this have anything to do with creating an opportunity for the community to have internet, to have a community-owned internet service for the community, like either government-owned or set up like Multnomah County is investigating? Do we have an opportunity to do that through this process?
Could I just comment on that? Multnomah County has a partner in that research, and that is us. We allocated $25,000 to that research report, and it's my understanding that we're looking at, a year and a half long process?
Probably.
So does that mean at any time we would be able to get out of this deal and do a better deal that would actually be better for the community?
Well, I don't think that municipal broadband and AT&T services are mutually exclusive. I think you can have them both. The issue that we're facing, I think, as cities is that the FCC has issued these orders basically, telling cities we must approve these permits within a certain time frame, and we can't slow that time frame down in order to wait for the results of the municipal broadband study. Our office looks forward to the results of the study, but I think it's a separate issue from what AT&T is doing.
But just to clarify, we're not saying that only AT&T can have 5G in Portland. In fact, we're not allowed to say only they are. They're just the first ones who've come in offering to put any money on the table, which the other companies are not offering to do anything at this point. I also want to clarify that the League of Oregon Cities is partnering with the League of California Cities, and I think with Washington and other states, because everybody throughout the state is really concerned about this, particularly Independence and Monmouth, who have their own municipal system and are really just outraged that this might compete with it, or just that they have to go through all this infrastructure improvement for a private company. So I think we all agree this is an abhorrent process.
Portland is actually a national leader on this subject. I was recently at the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and my main presentation was on this issue and the city's leadership with regard to the lawsuit, the request for the change of direction from the FCC. And there's no question this has broad support, big cities, small cities. At the end of the day, it's really a property rights question, and whether we have the authority to regulate our right-of-way and charge reasonable fees for that right-of-way, or whether the federal government can preempt us. But it is my view that that issue, which we don't call the shots for the courts, we don't schedule for the courts, it's certainly a priority. But I see that as being somewhat different and removed from this question here before us today.
And if I may, Commissioner Hardesty, AT&T, the agreement for AT&T is the first one to come before us, so to speak, because AT&T has agreed to a higher rate than what the FCC has deemed reasonable. So the FCC in their September small cell order said that cities, it's presumptively reasonable that cities could charge no more than $270 per pole, and that's cumulative of all recurring fees, so lease fees, franchise fees. AT&T in this agreement has agreed to franchise fees for $12.50 per pole, so it's significantly higher than what the FCC has deemed reasonable.
And why do you think they would want to pay us more than they're required to?
Well, it's not more it's not that they're required to. It's what they're presumptively deemed reasonable. We have to prove that if we were challenged, that our costs were whatever we say they are. But I think AT&T, honestly, is looking at the opportunity to build, and they want to serve their customers faster, and this is their way of getting in the market sooner. The other carriers have not approached us about the fees yet.
And will we be creating an inequitable system if the big boys can come in and pay $12.50 per pole and other folks come in and they can't? Does that create an inequitable opportunity here in the city of Portland?
Well, under federal law, we're required to offer the same rates to everyone. So as AT&T is the first to come to an agreement, we're going to offer $12.50 to everybody else. So we're required to not be discriminatory and to offer everybody the same rates who are doing similar services.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate your responses.
Very good. Any public testimony on this item?
Yes, we have 14 people signed up.
Colleagues, I have a problem. I am due at the Clean and Safe Luncheon to thank the people who have been participating in that. I have an excused absence 5 minutes ago, and we have 4 more items left. Well, the problem is these are all emergency ordinances. It requires at least 4 members of the council to be present.
Emergency too. All have a right to be heard. Well, would you like to do the emergency ordinances before you leave?
They're all emergency ordinances.
This is too.
All right, well, let's just go for it. Let's go ahead. And if somebody on my staff could please let the folks know, I'm sorry, I will not be able to attend. Thank you.
The first three, please come on up, are Michael Hanna, Michaela Bedard, and Martin Dahl. Oh, Paul, it's a P, sorry, Martin, Paul. Okay, Michaela's gone. Let's go with Robin Gottlieb. Robin here? Yes, she is. Okay, thank you.
Greetings, Michael. You want to start us off?
Greeting.
It's good to see you. Can you do it in 2?
Yes.
Great. We'll
Yes.
take 2 minutes. Thank you.
Great. Hello, Mayor Wheeler and Commissioners. Thank you for giving us the time to be heard on this issue. I'm not sure which office removed this from the consent.
Michael, put your name in the record.
Oh, I'm sorry, Michael. I'm Michael Hanna, proud resident of Multnomah County. I'm not sure which office removed this from the consent agenda, but I thank you, Commissioner Hardesty, for moving the consent agenda so we could speak on this. We're at a crossroads, and there are 2 paths forward for our community's connectivity digital infrastructure: corporate ownership and control, or community ownership and control. It's very simple. For over a year, through the Municipal Broadband PDX campaign, many of us have lobbied City of Portland to advocate for municipal broadband, which is publicly owned, not-for-profit fiber optic network, an internet utility for every resident and business operated by Oregonians for Oregonians. More than 200 cities and towns in the United States already have a publicly owned fiber optic internet utility, not-for-profit. The City of Portland staff have spent countless hours, according to the lobbying reports, working with AT&T and Verizon over the last year. And we just heard that it's a sovereignty issue, it's a property issue, yet that's correct. Mill Valley has put in an emergency ordinance to delay 5G. So I've used technology my entire life. I love technology, but technology is a tool to improve our lives. Negotiating with AT&T in this manner is being a tool for the corporations. They mentioned the $200K for digital inclusion. That is less than what AT&T extracts from our local economy every day. So just to put that in context. Also, AT&T gave a $600,000 bribe to Trump's mob lawyer, Michael Cohen, to further push 5G. So I have 3 requests from my elected officials today. Please don't be a corporate tool. Stand up against this corporate power grab and deny this attempt to declare an emergency, because it is obviously not an emergency. Guaranteeing AT&T's profit is not an emergency. And then please pull this to a full vote for the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Hi, can you hear me? This is my first time testifying. Hello, everyone. My name is Robin Gottlieb, and I'm from the Stop 5G campaign and the Digital Commonwealth Alliance. I'm here today to ask you, Portland City Council, to decline to vote on 5G as an emergency ordinance. When the public comes to you with their plan for a publicly owned municipal broadband internet, one that includes subsidies for costs for low-income families and will generate revenue, we have to fight tooth and nail for it at the city. But when telecom corporations come in with their plan to increase their monopolies by taking over the internet sector, the city welcomes them in with open arms over 100 times. This is with no caps on the prices they can charge, no equity mandate, and no input from the public. All of this that I mentioned gives the perception that on this issue, the city cares more about the voices of corporate interests than they do about the voices of the public. But I really hope that's not the case, which is why I'm here today. The 5G effort was hidden from the public and added to the consent agenda as emergency ordinance. If it weren't for Commissioner Hardesty, we wouldn't be here today to give our testimony before it's too late. The city is on track to allow 5G, which is a new, potentially dangerous technology, into our city, and I urge you strongly to reconsider that. Instead, I am requesting you to just say no to 5G and support a 3-year moratorium on the issue. Portlanders have made clear what internet they want from the city, and it's not 5G, it's municipal broadband. Thank you again, Commissioner Hardesty, for removing this from the consent agenda so we could have our voices heard. And thank you, Commissioner Fritz, for listening to the people and securing funding for the municipal broadband study. Thank you all for letting me speak today.
Thank you.
Just so you know, thank you. I appreciate Commissioner Hardesty pulling this as well, but any member of the public can pull something from the consent agenda. You just let the council clerk know.
Oh, thank you very much. That's good to know.
Great. And I do also just want to clarify, and I'm glad that people are here and they want to testify, but to say that the public, this was hidden from the public or that the public did not get a chance to testify is not accurate. We had a full hearing on this subject in December, and we had lots of presentation and lots of public testimony. This is on the consent agenda because it's coming back, staff having completed the work that they were authorized to do during that hearing, after that testimony, after a vote of the full council, just for clarification. Good afternoon.
Yeah, I'm Martin Paul, P-A-L-L. I'm a professional who's worked in this area. I've published 8 papers on it and discovered the main mechanism of non-thermal effects. I would like to have 3 minutes, please.
Let's start with 2 and see where you get. We have a lot of people and a lot of issues, and we have a full afternoon.
Yeah, I wish that the propagandists from AT&T were limited to 3 minutes, or 2 minutes for that matter. I discovered 6 years ago the mechanism by which, the major mechanism by which EMFs produce non-thermal health effects. And those effects are produced at levels of exposure that are approximately 7.2 million times lower than our current safety guidelines allow. There are other, in addition, effects, considerations. Specifically, pulsed EMFs, EMFs that pulse up and down, are in most cases much more biologically active and therefore much more dangerous than our non-pulsed EMFs. Every single wireless communication device communicates via pulsation, and the pulsation effects are ignored universally by the industry and by the FCC. 5G is designed to be extremely highly pulsed. That is one of 4 reasons why 5G will be much more dangerous than the exposures that we already have. There are many severe and even existential threats to us based on the exposures that we already have. Cancer's been discussed a lot, but it is number 4 or 5 on my list. The most important things, I believe, are the neurological and neuropsychiatric effects, which are already very far along in our societies, and the reproductive effects, which are also very far along in our societies. Both of those develop cumulatively with time, and they become more and more severe with increasing time of exposures to the point where they become basically, they will, we will have, and let me say we're already seeing this now, a crash in our collective brain function, and that will destroy us. We will have a crash in our reproductive function. We're already seeing that now in 3 East Asian countries, and the other technologically advanced countries will probably follow in short order.
Make one more good point.
Make one more good point. Okay, what should we do? First of all, I think Portland should join the FCC lawsuit that the California League of Cities. You're already in there.
We're leading it, more to the point.
Okay, good. Secondly, I think that if we're forced to put in 5G with AT&T, there should be an understanding that the city of Portland will study the health impacts of those EMFs, and if they are shown to be substantial, the city of Portland should shut down the whole system.
Thank you. Appreciate your testimony, all 3 of you.
Next 3 are Scott France, Philip Wolf, and Kay O'Neill.
Good afternoon. Would you like to go ahead and start, sir?
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Wheeler, fellow city commissioners. My name is Scott France. I'm a 23-year resident of Southeast Portland. I'm here to ask you that the leaders of a city that brands itself as an environmentally progressive city, consider the potential damage to living systems in this region that 5G could bring, the implementation of 5G could bring. Over 230 scientists from more than 40 countries have expressed serious concerns regarding the ubiquitous exposure to EMFs, electromagnetic fields, generated by electric and wireless devices already before the additional 5G rollout. They refer to, quote, numerous recent scientific publications that have shown that EMFs affect living organisms at levels well below most international guidelines. The effects include increased cancer risk, cellular stress, increase in harmful free radicals, genetic disorders, structural and functional changes of the reproductive system, learning and memory deficits, neurological disorders, and the impacts on general well-being in humans. Damage goes well beyond the human race, as there is growing evidence of effects to both plants and animals. And I can supply your offices with those studies. After the scientists' appeal was written in 2015, additional research has convincingly confirmed serious health risks from fields from wireless technologies. The National Toxicology Program study showed a significant increase in the incidence of brain and heart cancer in animals exposed to EMFs. And a European Union-funded review body looked at 100 studies on how EMF radiation may affect the environment. It concluded that this radiation poses a risk to bird and insect orientation and plant health. So I'm here to ask you that you decline a vote on 5G as an emergency ordinance.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Hi, I'm Kay O'Neill, and I'm here to talk about the surveillance and privacy risks of 5G. AT&T tracks and sells personal data from our phones. They want to expand the dragnet to include our home browsing history. In other words, 5G is a way for telecoms, not just AT&T, to better access our data so they can sell it. Motherboard recently investigated a plethora of phone geolocation companies with little oversight by telecom industries, ranging from car salesmen, property managers, bail bondsmen, and bounty hunters. Compounding that already highly questionable business practice, this spying capability is also being resold to others on the black market who are not licensed by the company to use it, seemingly without their knowledge. This investigation shows not only how widely American sensitive location data has been sold through the overlooked and questionable data broker market and its black market, but also how the ease of access dramatically increased the risk of abuse. Motherboard, and I'm happy to provide the full investigation that was just completed a month ago, found that an individual company made more than 18,000 data location requests through a data broker. Carriers like AT&T assured customers location tracking abuses are isolated incidents. Now it appears that hundreds of people could track our phones, and they were doing it for years before anyone in the wireless companies took action. Senator Ron Wyden said in an email statement after he was presented with Motherboard's findings, "That's more than an oversight. That's flagrant, willful disregard for the safety and security of Americans." I encourage the mayor and all the commissioners to say no to AT&T's alleged emergency to request for a fast-track contract. Please read the mountain of evidence owning broadband as a public utility would provide. Chattanooga, Tennessee makes hundreds of millions off of their broadband revenue. We could have the same commonwealth here in Portland. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. not sure what he's asking me to do.
You want us to take your phone? Is that?
Take your phone. That's dangerous, Philip.
Call, Mayor.
Do you want me to answer it?
Yes. Answer the call.
Hello? Yes. Very good, thank you. Can I hang up?
So Philip was
I'm
signing.
confused on what the
Philip was
point is.
signing into his computer, and it was talking on his phone. Is that what was happening?
Okay. Sorry, I don't know what I'm doing.
It's very
Okay.
impressive.
Thank you. It's a good technology. Thank you. There's like a translator.
Yeah, we should have put it further on the speaker.
Sorry, I screwed up the demo. I apologize. He shouldn't have given me the technology. That was his mistake. Okay. Okay, I get that. Thank you. I get that.
Don't have to worry about your spelling.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
The next three are Julia DeGraw, Leah Gibbs, and Stephen King.
Leah had to leave.
Okay, then we'll go with Andrew Markell.
Good afternoon. Thanks for being
Good
here.
afternoon. My name is Julia DeGraw, and I live in the neighborhood of Montevilla. And I wear a lot of different hats, but I would like to be speaking on behalf of the Portland Metro People's Coalition today. And I'll keep it short, but process matters. And I do understand that there was apparently a meeting where people could give public testimony. I don't think anyone's arguing that there wasn't that opportunity. But this is a very big issue. And I think having additional opportunity for groups and individuals to share their input would have been a very good idea. And I think additionally, your actions aren't really matching your messaging when you look at the fact that you had 7 months to enthusiastically support municipal broadband by joining the host of all the communities and cities in Multnomah County, including Multnomah County, to move forward with the municipal broadband feasibility study. It took 7 months to get $25,000, which was almost half what Gresham put in with a much smaller population. And you did it really at the last minute. And I think I would like to echo a little bit of what Robin Gottlieb said, which is that really indicates to me and to the public, it looks like your priorities are with AT&T rather than with really robustly exploring a publicly owned internet that addresses these equity issues that, frankly, AT&T is unable to address. A corporate internet system does not address equity issues. They're talking about $250. One of the estimates is $250 a month for this service. That's not a working class price people can afford to pay for internet. And these are industries that extract up to $1 million a day out of Multnomah County alone. That's what AT&T, Sprint, Verizon, and T-Mobile extract a day from our region. We could have a robust, publicly owned internet, and I would like to see a lot more enthusiasm coming from the city on that and seeing a lot more slowing down of this process. But this actually accelerates it by giving them this contract. So anyway, I urge also that you do not vote on this as an emergency and that you have a more public process moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Leah Gibbs had to leave, but she emailed me her testimony to read.
Could I get your name for the record?
Oh, yes. I'm Robin Gottlieb, reading for Leah Gibbs.
Thank you.
Good morning, council members and Mayor Wheeler. My name is Leah Gibbs, and I'm a member of the Portland Metro People's Coalition, and I'm here to voice my strong opposition to the emergency ordinance for 5G. You've already heard strong testimony regarding the concerns with privacy, equity, and safety around the issue of 5G. I share all those concerns. I did want to mention how nice it was to see earlier how the council is supporting local businesses and that there was a discussion about how keeping business local improves our community. Fortunately, we have the option of a locally and democratically owned internet service, municipal broadband, and I and the coalition strongly support that option. I would like to talk briefly about what this decision means to the children in our communities. I'm a mother of 2 young kids who attend a Portland public school. Our children do not have lobbyists. They do not make campaign contributions, but the implications of our decisions on their lives must be considered. I'm a veterinarian. I believe in science, and when I was first told about the health concerns of wireless radiation, I thought it was laughable. However, in my mission to prove myself correct, I found that those with the biggest concerns are those that we should listen to most, and I changed my mind. Those with concerns include the American Association of Pediatrics, MIT scientists, and a host of other credible and respected medical and scientific experts. There is strong scientific work published to suggest that the concerns about 5G may be outsized in children with a developing neurological system and thinner skulls that allow for greater absorption of environmental radiation. Increased research by non-industry funded scientists is needed prior to proceeding with implementation of a technology that cannot be avoided if brought to an urban area. 5G creates an unavoidable electric cloud around our neighborhoods. There is no reason to rush into a contract with out-of-state corporate interests. We have emergencies in this city: the state of public education, the treatment of our houseless population, the opioid crisis. Those are emergencies. Giving a contract to AT&T is not an emergency, and I urge you to vote against this emergency ordinance.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Andrew Markell. I've been a resident of Portland since 1990, and I just want to sum up everything that I've heard today. I came with a prepared testimony, but with 2 minutes. And it seems quite obvious to me, as someone that has worked in Portland and has known Portland to be a city that values freedom and democracy and equity and has a global reputation for this, to be listening to the concerns of the community. There are very strong community concerns around surveillance, around equity issues, and around health. There's no unequivocal evidence on either side. So it seems to me that the onus of proof must fall with the corporation. And the corporations have a long history in the last 5 years or more of demonstrating that they are very callous with our privacy, very callous with our data, very callous with our rights as citizens, and that their game plan is always to obfuscate the issue, much like they did with cigarettes, and to create a cloud of uncertainty and to label those that have questions to be insane, conspiracy theorists. And meanwhile, the poorest and most disadvantaged in the community are always the ones that suffer the most. So there are options on the table. And what I'm hearing everyone say today is we want the time to consider those options. Mill Valley is taking the time to consider those options. Governor Brown of California has made it possible for every city in California to consider those options. It seems incumbent upon us as a state and as a city with this proud global reputation of equity and justice and fairness and privacy to follow suit. It is completely baffling to my mind why we would rush into something like this with a pending case in the Ninth Circuit, why we would follow Donald Trump's lead in demanding that all cities adopt this. I mean, Portland should be at the furthest reach of Donald Trump's demands upon the citizens. So it is incumbent upon all of us to take time to reflect and to really study this issue and to hear all sides. That's my request. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, all three of you. Next three, please.
Are Stephen King, Mark Kohler, and Andrew Solvlek.
Good afternoon.
Hi, how are you doing? My name is Stephen King. I'm a resident of North Portland. And I guess I'm going to put away my, my prepared remarks to maybe bring up two things. First of all, we've talked a lot about municipal broadband and the value of that. And I don't know if the connection between 5G and municipal broadband has been made entirely clear. But all of the money that AT&T will make, or Sprint, or whoever, all of the companies coming in, is made at the very end between the connection between the tower or the wire and the consumer. So the consumers are the people who bear all of the expense, the people who are paying all the money. So as you do municipal broadband, if you have to compete with the 5G for consumers, it cuts significantly down on the potential revenue and the potential savings for people within Portland, and to the point where municipal broadband may not be even doable. So we don't know that answer yet. We haven't done the study, but this could actually kill municipal broadband. And we need to understand that, we need to stop that, and we need to look at it before we put this through. That's number one. And an additional part of that is that the cost of this 5G is going to run way excess what most people in this community can pay, or many people in this community can pay, especially disadvantaged communities. So by doing this, by taking this step, you're pretty much putting the stake in the coffin on municipally owned broadband. The second piece is the FCC made us do it is not an excuse, and we really need to direct this. I mean, Trump and their minions have done all sorts of ridiculously stupid things, and we've stood up, and we are standing up. We've got a lawsuit. Why are we doing a contract before the lawsuit is complete? There's a HR 530 in front of the House of Representatives right now to overturn the FCC. Let that play out. Don't rush to this. There's absolutely no reason to rush to this. AT&T is the world's largest telecom company in the world. They have $160 billion worth of revenue. They have $500 billion worth of assets. They do not need this gift from us. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. My name is Mark Kohler. I'm also, like some of the previous speakers, a member of the Portland Metro People's Coalition. We are an organization of over 20 different citizen groups who you are very well aware of the broad reach of support that municipal broadband has across the metro area. And I just wanted to speak, I know I've already talked about, I'm sorry that Professor Paul didn't have a longer time to speak to you about the health risks involved in not only our community, but around the world from this technology that's being ignored, quite honestly, by not just the Trump administration, because people talk about that, but the lawsuit, regardless of the results of the lawsuit, I think it's imperative upon this group and this city to stand up against a decision that is clearly in the best interests of corporations against the health and welfare of our citizens. I know it's a challenge for you folks to stand up when the federal organizations, quote, and I heard it earlier in this discussion, demanding that we accept a technology that we do not want. That is our right as citizens to stand up when a policy or a law is against the best interests of our people. And I think we as citizens and members of this community would expect all of you to stand up for us against the organization that is pushing this technology on us when we clearly have an alternative that is both safe, reliable, and provides us the resources that come from that technology. So I'm just speaking as a member of this community to ask you all to stand up when the time comes. You know, you are all elected officials. You respond, I hope, to us as individual citizens who demand that you do the right things regardless of how it appears from a federal standpoint in terms of requirements. So I just ask you all to remember that this is what the people are demanding and that you stand up for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Andrew Solik.
Sir, could you pull the mic a little closer so we can hear you?
My name is Andrew Solik, and I'm really nobody special. I don't represent a group or a cause or anything so much as I'm a concerned citizen. I'm a homeowner across the river here in the Buckman neighborhood and have been for 30 years, living in Portland since '73. My concern here is the pace of which things are accelerating along this line. I realize to some extent, based on what I heard this morning, your hands are tied because of this federal lawsuit, but really, I don't see why this is such an emergency. I know that there's a push by these corporations to make America's cities smart, and I'm just wondering why we have to depend on technology to be smart about stuff. I think the smart thing for us to do is to take more time. I didn't realize there was one meeting already where testimony was given about this subject, but it appears to me the scope of this is so large that it demands more time, it demands more publicity, it demands more community involvement. And I would like to urge this council to take whatever steps they feel would enable the public to be more informed, to completely vet this operation, and distribute this information to public in the way of public forums so that everyone becomes involved, because if it's passed, it's going to affect everyone here. And I would just hope that you vote against this as an emergency measure, and by doing so, vote for transparency, due process, and putting the health and safety of the citizens of Portland ahead of short-term corporate profit. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, all three of you.
The last person who signed up is Maggie.
Good afternoon.
I just want to say how much I love each and every person who came up to testify on this issue today. It matters so much to every individual who needs defense against electronic invasion of corporations, of foreign entities, of Big Brother, of the danger of EMS. Everyone who showed up today cares about the general citizens, the little people.
Thank you. Does that complete our testimony?
That's all who signed up, yes.
Very good.
Mayor?
Commissioner Fish.
I move that we remove the emergency clause from item 122.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Fish, a second from Commissioner Fritz to remove the emergency clause. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Fritz.
Aye.
Fish.
Aye.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The emergency clause is removed. The ordinance is amended. Commissioner Fritz.
Could I ask a question of staff, please, Ms. Lee?
Please.
Is there a reason that we have to go into this before the lawsuit is figured out? Are we required to allow 5G whenever anybody wants to have it?
I'm not sure if I understand your question.
I'm not quite sure what the FCC, how broad the directive is. I know that it sets a floor or a suggested maximum for the amount of money that we can charge, and as we heard, it's a lot more. Does it say that we have to allow 5G facilities to be built in any particular time frame?
I think not in so many words, but and hopefully I'm answering your question. The August 2018 FCC order preempted cities from imposing a moratorium. So if we have the applications, we have to accept them and review them or deny them within a certain time frame.
But we don't have to do this because this is a temporary permit, which we're saying is before we get to the final agreement. Are we allowed to wait and allow that franchising to move forward?
Oh, I think I see what you're saying. What we're trying to do today with the ordinance is to follow the direction that we were given in the December 2018 resolution, which one of the milestones specifically was to issue and negotiate and execute a temporary revocable permit with AT&T by February 17th.
Okay.
It's,
well,
currently AT&T already has a franchise and it's in effect. So this just looks at sort of the current FCC standards around small cell rates and takes that into context. So we're kind of we're adapting the franchise to fit current federal law.
Okay. So obviously by our vote today to take the emergency clause off, we're not going to be done by February 17th. Right. So the council is hereby saying you don't necessarily need to rush into things. I'm troubled on page 15 of 23 of the franchise agreement. There's added a section M that refers to the challenge of the city. Mm-hmm. I would prefer to see it say if it turns out our challenge is upheld, that this entire contract is null and void. Because when you said that, I had not fully understood that this sets the rate for all of the other subsequent agreements. And so if it turns out that the FCC's regulation is tossed out or overturned by the Congress, as we just heard, we might want to charge more than $1,200 per pole.
Yes, that's true. I think what the city would like to do today with this ordinance is to set the rate at what we think is at least slightly more proper than $270. So by approving the franchise at the $1,250 rate, we're affirmatively saying to all the other carriers that this is the rate for the city. So if we delay, then I think there may be a question about, is $1,250 appropriate? Should it be lower?
Well, from my perspective, or should it be higher if it turns out that the FCC rules? I mean, we are required and under oath to follow the laws of the United States of America and the state of Oregon and the city of Portland. So we unfortunately have to do what the FCC says. On the other hand, I'm interested in the interim before this comes back in what could we do that could push the limits. We know from the 2009 resolution, which actually I was just looked it up, and when it originally passed, it passed 3-0, but 2 members were not here, and we brought it back for reconsideration so that Commissioner Fish and one of our other colleagues could vote, so it would be a 5-0 because it was precedent-setting in 2009. And yet, we've asked, every year it's been on the city's legislative agenda to try to get them to look at health impacts, and they're basically doing what the tobacco companies did in not reading the information and not looking into the problems. On the other hand, it's the law that we're not allowed to consider health impacts. So I think I would certainly like, in the interim before this comes back, you to look at, yes, we want to get more money than $200 per poll. On the other hand, this is a matter of principle which we're currently litigating, and other ways to make sure that we don't set that precedent in the event that the litigation is successful.
Will you, Commissioner, could you yield for a moment? By taking the emergency clause off, what we have given ourselves is the additional flexibility to have further briefings from the Office of Community Technology. Also, if any member of the council wishes to bring an amendment, it could be brought next week if the council so chooses. And so I think what we've done is given the community a little more time to weigh in, given each member of council a chance to talk to the Office of Community Technology. It would come back for a second, for a vote next week, but that's just a placeholder. I mean, what that says is that it comes back and then the council decides how it wants to proceed. So I know that, just speaking for myself, there's a couple of issues that have been raised I'd like to talk to the Office of Community Technology about and just get my questions answered. Mayor, I appreciate some of the points that you made, clarifying the record. I think it's a healthy process for us to take a little more time. It will come back next week, but that's a control date. That just means that that's when the matter comes back and the council can decide how to proceed.
It doesn't actually necessarily have to come back next week. As we just did earlier, we can send it. I mean, I think this is a really important issue that I personally would like to be involved in making the decision, having been in charge of the former Office of Cable Communications and Franchise Management. I think that this issue really exemplifies why the council decided to pull the Office for Community Technology out of the Office of Management and Finance and have it be a standalone bureau again, because it is something that is of great community concern. And Commissioner Hardesty was the president of the forerunner of Open Signal, Portland Community Media. So it's obviously something that both of us have been working on for a very long time and would really like to join with our community partners to see where we could push some of the direction to be more in the way we would like it to go. Thank you for your work, Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor. I would also like to hear from legal counsel, like what options the city of Portland has, especially since we're in the middle of a lawsuit. And I'd like to know if there's any precedent of us moving in one direction while we're in the middle of a lawsuit rather than waiting for the lawsuit to be completed.
And we will make sure you get that briefing in the interim.
Very good. This is a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading as amended.
Thank you.
And I presume we need to pick a date. The next date that I believe the entire council is available is the 13th of March, if I remember correctly.
That's correct.
Why don't we take that as a placeholder
Thank
unless
you.
anybody has a different idea?
Really appreciate
Good
that.
idea.
Okay, very good. So let's do that.
And thank you to all the community members who came today.
Yes,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Michael, it's good seeing you again.
Good to see you, Mayor.
Yeah, you bet.
Commissioner
Hope things are
Hardesty,
good.
I have a question for you. I read somewhere you're leading a rally at 1 o'clock. Are we about to lose you because we have 3 emergency items, and I just want to make sure we manage our time.
I will be here through these, and actually, I think these will be answered very quickly. They won't take the time.
Can we deal with them together as
Yes.
We have to do 124 separately, but we can read 25 and 26 together.
Okay.
So that'll speed things up a bit. 124, please. Pulled from consent.
Pay property damage and bodily injury claims of Jacqueline Van Arkel in the sum of $22,555 resulting from a motor vehicle collision involving the Portland Police Bureau.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your patience. You learned a little bit about 5G.
I did. I don't know if I had heard of it before.
Very good. Commissioner Hardesty had some follow-up questions on this item.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here. And my questions are really brief. My question was, I noticed that there were 3 accident claims that we are voting on today, and I just wanted to know if there's a trend that we should be concerned about, because all 3 of these accidents were with Portland Police Bureau vehicles, and so I just wanted to make sure it was on the records. That just caught my attention that there was 3 at one time. They're for small claim amounts, but I wanted to hear that on the record. Thank you.
Right, and and I don't know that there's really a trend or an uptick in them. We could, possibly run some sort of report and get that to you to let you know if we're getting more accidents. I mean, we're on the road all the time, every day, so we do have a lot of accidents, not just police, but other bureaus too. But we'd be happy to try and get that data for you if you like. I don't have it available right now, today.
I think a follow-up, if I can just speak to this point. We deal with a lot of property damage and bodily injury claims on consent, and they're not exclusive to the police bureau. We have infrastructure bureaus that have trucks and cars and things. And these things are normally negotiated with individuals through their attorneys, then go through our risk management, and so the dollars are usually not in question. My suggestion is we approve them, but that the commissioner get a briefing on trends, and also what steps are, frankly, I think we all want to know, what steps are we taking to prevent these from happening? Are there any policies, policy issues which are raised by virtue of having these claims on a regular basis?
Right, and we can absolutely look into that and get that information to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fish. In addition, though, I would like to know whether or not in any of these accidents there was any discipline involved.
Discipline is something that's handled directly with the police department. Risk management doesn't get involved in that part of the claim. We're just, our job is to make the person whole again, but that's up to the Bureau.
Thank you. I appreciate your response to that. Yes, your risk management. But for me, I would love to have a rounder conversation about, like, well, how do we close the loop? I mean, accidents happen, and certainly with wet payments and ice and all the good stuff that we encounter, accidents do happen. But when I start seeing a trend, then I want to know that the Bureau is at least having conversations with their employees to find out why that is, and to do any corrective action that needs to take place. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And Mayor, I'm happy to support these today, but those questions, I just wanted to make sure were on the record and that additional information would be coming to my office.
Yes.
Very good. Public testimony on item 124.
I don't have sign-up sheets for any of these.
Call the roll.
Fritz?
So the city's adopted Vision Zero, which says that all crashes are avoidable, and that we also put into place a required follow-up with city employees who are involved in crashes. I'm very concerned that we do get them on a fairly frequent basis, and that this may be due to distracted driving, since they have the mobile display units in their patrol vehicles. I think we should be looking into voice guided directions coming from the computers, or even looking at pairing up officers so that they don't have to concentrate on, so that one could be concentrating on drivers and the others can be concentrating on avoiding crashes. Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Hardesty?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. Please read items 125 and 126 together.
125, pay bodily injury claim of Jose Moreno Cruz in the sum of $18,125 resulting from a vehicle collision involving the Portland Police Bureau. 126, pay bodily injury claim of Sanjay Kumar in the sum of $12,716 resulting from a vehicle collision involving the Portland Police Bureau.
Commissioner Hardesty?
Thank you. My same statements apply. So if you were here, I just want to know whether we're facing a trend, and if so, what are we doing in reference to this trend?
So my name is Becky Chow from Risk Management, and as Karen said, we don't have that trend information prepared this morning, but we can provide that to you.
Thank you very much.
And I would further like you to track individual employees. I don't know if do we now have a flagging mechanism so that if somebody's in more than one crash, that's a cause for looking into their driving habits?
It's my understanding that the police bureau has one system and other bureaus all are together in a different system, and that's, again, not something that I work on, but
it might be something to look at through risk management and Bureau of Human Resources and other places in OMF, because I've been in charge of bureaus where it turns out that because the incidents were spread further apart, it wasn't flagged that a particular employee had a number, and I am concerned about that. So just something else, Ms. Chow, for your very busy schedule to be thinking about. Thank you.
all right, thank you.
Any testimony on 125 or 126? Mary doesn't look interested. Please call the roll on 125.
Fritz.
The last person here. Thank you, Mary. Aye.
Fish.
Aye.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. Next item, 126. Call the roll.
Fritz.
I said corrected. Another person here. Thank you for staying. Aye.
Fish.
Aye.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. And with that, we are adjourned until 2 p.m. Commissioner Hardesty, I have a question.